3, 2. Oh my God.
Yo, what's up?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program.
The Airtime Podcast is presented by Van Shoes since 1966.
There's nothing fake about it. Have something to believe in and be yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We have my all-time favorite skier in the booth. I would argue the GOAT, at least to me. Kye Petersen, thank you for coming on the podcast. Huge fan. What have you been up to lately?
Thanks for having me, Jody. Lately, I've been up in Smithers, northern BC, steelhead fishing lately.
How long was the fishing trip?
Well, I've kind of trended towards spending most of my fall up there, so I was up there for 2.5 months or so.
Do you go up by yourself, or do you stay with a homie? Or
I got quite a few good homies up there, so I stayed in my camper. Last kind of 2 years, I've spent a good portion of the off season living out of my camper.
Is this your first time doing a trip like that, steelhead fishing, or is this, you do this annually?
No, I do it annually. Yeah. I've done it the last few years pretty religiously, winter and summer periodically.
Okay, so between, you got fishing, climbing, skateboarding, surfing, all things that I would say that you do in your free time other than skiing. Which one of those is your favorite as of right now?
I don't know. That's a hard question. There's all of it's just ingrained in me kind of. So like skateboarding for me is definitely my first passion I ever had as a person. So, I mean, I couldn't lose any of them, but I could never lose skateboarding, it's just, yeah, if I had to say who I am more than anything else, it's a skateboarder. But right now, fishing has been a huge kind of benefit to my life. And I don't know, it creates so many different emotions. And it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Fly fishing for steelhead and certain species, but it's hard to say. I couldn't get rid of snow, so I mean I think I'd have to say like skiing and being in the mountains is still number one, obviously, for me. Although as a lifestyle, skateboarding has been huge, and climbing as well, and surfing as well. I mean I started surfing young because my mom did, so yeah, I don't know. I can't really lose any of it. I'm just attracted to water, it seems like.
What about being on the river do you like? You said that, to me it seemed like you're kind of, maybe you're getting a little bit older in life. What does fishing provide you that you enjoy so much?
Purpose, it creates a purpose, but it's a challenge, and that challenge is like what drives it. But I think for me it's the challenge and the objective that is like a catalyst for just being there and, like whatever, boating or hiking into these places, or you're just in beautiful places all the time. And, I think a lot goes the same for skiing. You go out there trying to find the sickest spine line or something like that. But that's, in the end, that's like your reason, but it's not just that is kind of why you're out there, I guess.
Totally. I mean, it's the process that I feel like most of us fall in love with.
Yeah, totally.
When you're going fishing, how far away are you? When you said you went, you're northern BC, is it fairly remote? Are you close to a big town, or are you actually like just in the middle of fucking nowhere fishing with like one homie?
Both. That's kind of what's unique about up there. It's the Skeena River system, and it's probably the most broad system that, like, with the largest steelhead and the largest runs. So you got like tiny tributaries that you could hike days without seeing a person.
Sick.
And then you got rivers like the Bulkley that run right through the town of Smithers, and so you're sometimes fishing right near town, but sometimes 2 corners down the river it still feels like you're out there a little ways, even though there's boats around. But then you go some places you don't see anyone, or I do the same like here on the South Coast and on the island and stuff. And yeah, for me, a lot of it's getting away to places that no one's at. And the same motivation for the mountains is like, as I've gotten older, is always to try to find something new. And obviously there's still like, if it's a super rad zone, say that you've skied a million times, it's awesome to go ski that. But there's something special about finding something new and just, you know, looking around the next corner. So fishing's the same, you know, you can fish the known runs or the runs, you know, there's fish at, but it's really cool to go explore and find, you know, new places. So
It's kind of the best thing when you walk around a corner and then you're like, whoa, this river actually bends and there's this cool rock that the river ate through. And there's like this little, I don't know, hole through the fucking rock. And there's so many intricacies with what nature can provide just around one corner.
totally.
And seeing that with the human eye, the naked eye is like, damn, nature's popping over here. Like, it's so
100%.
sick. Or it's like you go a little bit over, like you go one ridge over and it goes from like this like lush green environment to like this other microclimate in the matter of like a couple hundred meters. And you're like, what the fuck is going on over here? Like, it just clearly doesn't get the same amount of precipitation or whatever.
Totally. Yeah. And then there's like so many variables within all that. And I think that's what drives us to do it. Surfing would be the same, you know, not every day it's perfect barrels, but like the drive to find that, you know, is what it's all about for me.
What's your favorite place you've ever been to go surfing?
Oh, man, I don't know. That's really hard.
Have you done quite a few missions for context?
Yeah, quite a few. I mean, when I was younger, I traveled every year to surf. Central America and Indonesia and different places. If there was nobody around and you could just, I still, Hawaii for me would be like kind of the raddest, I think.
Which island?
The North Shore probably on Oahu, but yeah. Like when I was 8 and 9, I lived in Maui when I was young, and that's where I started skateboarding really. So have like a bit of a connection there with that place, but for me it's between there and the West Coast on like Vancouver Island.
So if we change gears slightly here, you have your dad, this legendary icon in skiing. It seemed to me, and I've always known this from living in Whistler, that he was at the forefront of changing skiing in a freestyle direction, and was one of the greatest skiers in freestyle skiing ever. Maybe tell us a little bit about your relationship with your dad and just who Trevor Petersen was.
To correct that a little bit, I wouldn't say freestyle. He was at the forefront of pioneering like big mountain skiing, especially here in like around Whistler.
For me, I look at skiing like in the 70s and early 80s as like people going up and they're just like pretentious rich people, not like ripping. But then I see like your dad's era and there's like this freestyle element to me. Maybe not tricks focus, but like this like destroy the whole fucking mountain vibe.
There was a lot. I think, they were the era where style was a really big thing, you know. You can just even see it when you watch like my dad in the movies or whatever, like with the headband and ponytail and just like the clothes they were wearing and
the headband is so sick.
Yeah, you know, like the re-entries, like on like the wind lips and like just getting your feet above you and throwing like style into everything. And but freestyle at that time was kind of a different thing. Like my dad and them would not be associated with freestyle skiing because it was like, you know, moguls and
I didn't know that.
Essentially,
like in snowboarding, it's just like freestyle. It's just, I don't know, it's a little bit different, I guess.
I think like the term freestyle started with like guys like Wayne Wong and you know, like even Glenn Plate came from like a freestyle background, and they were all like, you know, hot dog and mogul skiers. And my dad was more of he didn't come from a ski racing background, but a lot of the guys like him did for sure.
What kind of background did he come from?
He grew up like all around, kind of moving around Vancouver, on the North Shore, and he grew up like he had 2 older brothers and grew up skateboarding a lot.
Damn, like really early then.
Yeah, like my dad's brothers, my uncles, they I think it was actually the first skateboard company in Vancouver, called Ferrari Skateboards, and they were like teenagers pressing these decks in their garage or whatever, and they were a part of like the first slalom events on like the North Shore and stuff in Vancouver. So my dad was a bit younger than them, but that's how we got into like introduced to that. And then the mountains came through my gran worked up at Grouse, I think. So they got passes of some years. So my dad started skiing then, but he didn't start skiing till he was, like 17 or something later.
So did he skate before?
Yeah, for sure. Cause growing up in Vancouver, that would have been kind of what happened, but he was trending towards the mountains and he was really intrigued by mountaineering and stuff. So he'd go like hike the Lions, I think, and those North Shore mountains, and Sea to Sky would have been really undeveloped at that point. But he started moving up that way. And then he never finished high school and he started working at a logging camp when he was 16 and did that till he died every year in the summers. So that was kind of his life. But then he moved to Apex at a young age. This is before Blackcomb opened. And then met a bunch of other skiers and started going backcountry skiing and stuff like that. And then, before, I think right around when Blackcomb opened, they all were in Whistler again. They all kind of moved to Whistler at that time. And I don't know, just kind of unfolded. I think there was a whole bunch of people at that time that were inspired by some of the European like ski alpinists, guys like Patrick Valençant, Ansem Bode, Sylvain Sudan. They were skiing like this, the first people to ski steeps, and it was more, ski mountaineering. So my dad saw that and they got, inspired. And at that time, no one had skied a lot of this stuff around here. So they kind of had the whole place to themselves. They were, first guys skiing all the classics, even on the mountain, this stuff you ski all the time, before the lifts were there and whatnot. But
is that crew like, are they filming? Do they have sponsors?
Not early on, early on, I think like guys like Scott Schmidt down in the States and Glenn Plake and stuff were getting most of the budget, and they were kind of more known early on, around that same time. Up here and all over, skiing was in like a ski bum lifestyle kind of period. And like even today, someone that's a ski bum is not like the ski bums were back then. Most of my friends actually that grew up in Whistler with me, their parents were all kind of ski bums or, maybe national team people if they're ski race family or something. But yeah, like it was sort of a thing. And I think back then it was just easier to be able to move to these resort ski towns and, get a job and work to ski. So they all kind of worked to do it. And as things progressed, like some guys like, Eric Peota and my dad, they managed to get sponsors and find budget to go on these trips, but they were already doing that beforehand. That was just kind of, yeah.
What to you is a ski bum from growing up here? Like, what does that mean to you? The real OG ski bum, what does that look like?
The real OG ski bum. I still know there's still a few of them, but it's rare to see. I mean, like I kind of lived a bit of the ski bum lifestyle in my like late teens and early 20s, but no one at my age I know is ever a true ski bum, and I don't think they even exist anymore. But I don't know, there's a movie called Ski Bum that was made by Johnny Thrash, a kind of legendary figure, but might explain some things. But yeah, it was the ski bums back then were the guys that would move to ski towns and live in the the squats in the forest here and like whatever, maybe wash dishes at night, make a bit of money somehow and live super cheap and ski every day,
I'm curious to hear you potentially speak on. You got your dad here. You mentioned Logan Peyota's dad. Is the iconic photo of them in the helicopter, like sitting outside of it? Is that them two?
Yeah, Pontoon Peak. You're speaking
Okay,
of.
so let's hear. Like, do you know anything about that? Like, they're hanging outside. Are they
Yeah.
roped in, or are they just fucking buck wild, like old school heli, no fucking rules?
No, yeah, they're they're just holding on, no rules. But as far as I know, but all the things that happened back in those days in AK were was like that, you know. Guys were showing up to pubs there and like, you know, throwing a little cash at, because like a lot of industry and there wasn't the heli skiing going on, so you know, people. Even in BC, I think in those days, it was a lot easier to, you know, give a pilot a bit of cash and get dropped wherever you wanted. You know, no rules, like less, you know, 10 years and whatever. But so yeah, pretty special times. Like I really think that early 90s was the golden era.
Do you have any stories about your dad living those kind of wild, wild west cowboy kind of helicopter, big mountain days?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you hear about them a lot. But yeah, they did a lot of stuff without helicopters too. You
Like
know,
sledding as well?
well, sleds were just becoming a thing. But yeah, like some of the guys the first guy that ever took me sled skiing was kind of the guy who started the whole sled skiing thing in Whistler, and that was a good friend of my dad's. But they were on Tundras back in the day, and then like whatever the you know, old chassis 600s and stuff. Right around when my dad died. But when he died, it was kind of right before sleds got a little bit better and right before skis got a little bit better, like fat skis and whatever. But he still, you know, he had a Tundra, you know, like everyone had a Skidoo Tundra, and they went out to places like Brandywine, and definitely some of the first skiers to use sleds around here. There was some sledders, but that's it.
Yeah, among the first for sure. Probably take you fucking 3 days to break into there with those old things.
Yeah.
If it snowed like 100 centimeters or 80
Yeah.
over a couple days on one of those, like damn, they've come a long way.
Yeah, there's a reason they weren't as key of a tool in those days, you know.
Yeah, they're like, I'm just gonna go ride the mountain because the mountain, from what I've heard, I a close friend of mine, Anthony Vitale, who's a filmer from Squamish, was saying when he first came here and he was painting or working construction on the IGA when it was first getting built, he was like, those days it would snow. There was a couple borders, and he's like, you would be riding POW for weeks.
Yeah, it's just changed. I know Anthony too.
Now it gets tracked out in fucking 3 hours. In both mountains.
Yeah, like in those years too, I think like when Marketplace was getting built, like IGA and stuff was probably like around 2000, right around when I would have moved back from Hawaii, I think. Anthony was probably just getting into the Circle and shit right after that, I would think. I think the Circle, opened in 99 or something?
I don't know. Dom and Maury opened that? Or?
No. Well, it was
Kevin Young?
KY
Yeah.
and Maury and Anthony.
Oh, okay. Those are the original ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'd love to hear you.
And yeah, sorry, what I was going to say was in those years, there was a lot of really good snow years with consistent temperatures, I think, in that period of time.
I mean, I even remember the first year I moved to Whistler. There was definitely like 2005 I moved here, I think. There was like some consistency, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lately the spikes
and less
are
wind
more,
for sure.
Yeah.
That I remember. I don't remember this like constant like wind buff happening to the entire Alpine.
Yeah, we've had a lot of years recently where it's really cold and then really warm and then prolonged like outflow winds, and we only really had those like short little cold windy periods, and they weren't so prolonged usually. But this fall it seems like it used to be right now, the way that the weather's been, and you know, I'm still positive, optimistic that we'll have some normal seasons.
Let's talk on your dad's impact that he had on you, because based on what you're saying with like you following that same path, skiing, skateboarding, I feel like your whole approach to life is somewhat due to him. I'd love to hear you speak on just how big of an impact he had on your life, or still has.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a huge impact on my life. It was, like a weird kind of way to, I feel like I got old young, but yeah, my dad died when I was 6, and you just start like remembering things now, and so like with my dad, I have memories and things that are with me, but then the rest of it's stories, and him being such a figure here, especially locally, like that's the stories and the image and everything is like so large to me, and it was always around. From when he died, there was, the stickers you'd see everywhere, the Trevor would do it stickers that you might know of. And
still see them around.
Yeah. So like it was so much there still. And then with the way my mom moved through different things, trying to process it and digest it with little success, it was just he was always around, there was a lot of things around. So for me, it was like, okay, like I looked up to him like more than anyone else, obviously, and wanted to do the things that he did and experience kind of what he did as much as I could. And luckily, some of his, friends and stuff were around, and I had good people around me in a lot of ways, but a lot of ways I was by myself too. And I was kind of just trying to, follow these footsteps, sort of invisible footsteps. At the same time, carve my own path. I was like really inspired by other things. But it was all stuff that he would have wanted to do, So yeah, I think naturally I just had like this laneway to follow. But yeah, I might be getting off topic. I can't remember.
Well, if you having your dad be such a public figure in a way, especially in the action sports community, like having so much documentation through video and magazines, and I'm sure when he passed, like those things became way more intriguing to you, like flipping through a magazine and seeing his like articles or photos of him, and then watching old videos and seeing like what he was doing. Like at 6, you probably weren't fully able to digest that other than my dad's fucking cool. And then you get a bit older and you like start flipping through these mags and you're reading them and you're seeing the lines that he's writing and stuff. And you're like, whoa, my dad is like fucking really inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah. And it came like a little later for sure. Cause I was like 6, I was just digesting like the like trauma of it all with my family and like whatever. I didn't like skiing at that time. You get like, not really hyped on the mountain, but I was, just 8 years old then. And we moved to Hawaii cause my mom wanted to, just do something different. And that was something that her and my dad wanted to do, is live on the ocean at some point. So she's like, I wanted to surf and do something different. I went to like massage school, used a fake name to get us into school, worked under the table, like the whole thing. Cause we're Canadian, and we lived really poor. We lived really simple. We didn't really like, my life was, I went to school and kind of a rough school because we couldn't get into the good school. And then I'd go skate every day at the youth center down on the beach and then play in, boogie board in the waves and whatever. And my mom was surfing lots. So then, I would surf more and my friends surfed. So I started surfing at like Hukipa and it was on the North Shore. We lived in Paia. But anyways, like after a year and a half there, that was my life, because when you're 8 years old, it's kind of when it's like you start really becoming a person, So skateboarding was like, that was my life at that time, and I fucking lived and breathed everything skateboarding, magazines and everything. This was the 98, 99. And then moving back to Whistler, it was like the winter came. I was like, oh shit, I can't skate and whatever. My mom was really supportive at that time. And we tried to build an indoor ramp and function, got shut down by a bunch of the neighbors eventually. And that ramp ended up in Spruce Grove and a tent years later. But anyways, skiing wasn't a thing, so. But coming back here, my dad's impact started, I think, reaching more. At that time, like new school skiing was a thing. There was twin tip skis, guys were going backwards and doing all this stuff. But I snowboarded. I wanted to snowboard too because I skateboarded, So I came back here and I kind of just like, obviously I had a lot of people around me, like ski, kind of thing. But then I, spent all my time at the skate park in the summers. Like the second part of the Whistler skate park was just finished, it was all new. They like the 8-9 foot section. So I was around all these guys, skating, so I always had guys like, Wes and these guys like telling me, go to snowboard, man. You can skate, well, you should snowboard.
Wes Makepeace?
Yeah.
So sick.
And different people, like everyone at that time. And I was getting hooked up by like 4-star distributions here. And skating, I was pretty good at skating for my age, especially. That's what I did. I don't know where I'm going with this now, but yeah, basically then my dad's impact came more then, and I started getting more into learning about the stuff he did. And I was 12, I think, first time I like ski toured and went in the backcountry, and I just started, wanting to see those things, whatever you skied this line first, I want to go ski it too, So I really started kind of learning more.
How did Hawaii, you said you grew up, or the town that you were in was a pretty rough school or whatever. How did like that all shape who you are today?
I don't know. I guess it shaped me in a lot of ways. Yeah, I got like beat up at school a lot. I think just being the only man in the house, like with my sister and my mom, I had to grow up kind of quick. But yeah, the school was funny. We couldn't get into like the school in Haiku on the North Shore, so I went to like Paia Elementary, and we were like the only white kids in the whole school. But yeah, all my friends were at least 4 or 5 years older, all skater friends. So after school was when I'd go to the youth center and skate the mini ramp, and yeah, that changed my life for sure. That was like, I think with all the other kind of trauma around me, I just really focused on that and just did that only kind of,
Who are your favorite skaters? What was like, if you're consuming the mags and stuff, who, as a young kid, like you said, you get around that 8 to 12 era, like when you start flipping through those mags, you start, I'm imagining, identifying with like certain characters in these magazines.
For sure. I mean, by the time I was like 12 to 14, it was like guys like Tony Trujillo and fucking, obviously like John Cardiel and those guys. But right from the get-go, like at 8 years old, I remember like Jeremy Ray and like, a lot of it was the guys around me, like on the island and stuff. Like Chris Cudlip was this really sick skater from Maui, and who else? But yeah, I mean, like so many skaters, all of them, the guys like, that golden era, McCrank, obviously, Mark Appleyard, and I don't know, man, everybody like in those days. I was like, I think the first shoes I bought were Globe skate shoes, and then it was like pretty quick after that, so moving back to Canada, Circa was a big thing. So, you're like, love Chad Muska and whatever, the whole thing. I don't know.
And you get hooked up by 4-star, so you're getting like C1 denim, you're getting Circa shoes.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, they were just hooking me up a little bit,
Hey,
but,
that hookup's a hookup. You know?
And it was like cool. It was like, I think it was when Duffy must have like got hurt or something, or maybe he worked there anyways, but Chris Duffy was like working there, and then obviously Strato, his Vans now, but he was there and running that show, and then what's his name, a bunch of guys, but yeah, it was all the same guys that were at the skate park when I was there in the evening, so.
I mean, you mentioned some heavy skateboarders there, and Rick McCrank coming up from Vancouver and skating this Whistler Park and being in all the old videos. I don't know if he was in the Adventure Scope ones, but at least the old whiskey videos he was in, and it's like some of the tricks that he was doing were just like, they're timeless to this day. Did you ever get to bear witness to some of those skaters ride this park and just fucking wreak mayhem up this fucking bowl?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like the Snake Run in Whistler's like my home. For sure got to see McCrank just show up, quietly like he did and just throw down. It's pretty cool. And a lot of the local skaters at that time, like as a kid, I loved, and I still do, but I don't see him around, Joey Williams,
Joey Williams was such a sick skater.
Yeah.
And snowboarder. Holy shit.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I rode on the hill with him a bit too, and some days like with the Barker brothers and stuff, and Joey, and he was probably better than his brother at snowboarding.
Reflections or Fast Food, Joey has like an insane part in one of those alternative movies.
Yeah, and he was like at skating at a crazy level. Really, really crazy. So yeah, growing up in Whistler, it was like Joey was like the shit. And those guys hooked him up at 4-star, and like the circle and stuff was like became a cool place to hang out. And it was funny in those days, West Beach hooked me up first. I was on but the West Beach circle like kind of clashed. There was like a bit of like a
Little beef
rat
there.
beef.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, local beef.
Yeah, but the West Beach was more corporate, so the circle kind of dominated as things moved on. But yeah.
You give them an inch, they take a mile.
Yeah.
So school, you live in Whistler. Can we confirm? Did you drop out? Did you drop out? Did you quit? Did you get fired? Were you smoking weed? What happened here? Did you graduate? How many degrees you got?
I got my. I'm trying to get my grade 10 like Ricky still.
Hell yeah, brother.
No, but I was trying to get my schooling done for a long time, and it got dragged on. I was like, I signed my first contract when I was 12 with Rosignol skis. It all started really early. Anyways, I was traveling from the young age a lot. And then by the time I was, 14, 15, I started falling behind because I wasn't getting my schoolwork done on the road like I should have been. And then I started going to like the Adult Learning Center, which was like a nighttime school portable. So I missed out on a lot of like proper high school, a lot of my youth was kind of fucked up because I focused so hard on the crafts I was interested in, and had opportunities that I was like, all right, I'm going to jump. I have to take these opportunities and put everything into them. And school got left behind. So I was trying to get my GED in the end later on and never fully got my high school diploma. But
was your mom always accepting of you, taking these opportunities? Was she like, you should do this? Or was she like, oh, I don't really care what you do? Or was she like, you should be in school?
It was a bit of both for sure. Like wanted me to finish school, but she was supportive. Our background was very, core mountain influenced, and obviously with my dad and everything, it all kind of made sense. But I also, I was making decisions for myself too at some point, and she was very supportive in those early years. So it was a thing too for me. Like it didn't just happen like that though. It wasn't like I just all of a sudden was getting paid to ski. It was from the age of 10 when I came back to Whistler from Hawaii. I was, like I said, snowboarding, skateboarding, skiing, but then the whole new school skiing movement was just popping off. Guys like JP Auclair and these guys were inventing basically a new craft. And the guys like what my dad and them, what they were doing was still a big thing, skiing in the big mountains, but skis were developing, like shaped skis were developed, and twin tip skis. And it wasn't until later in my career the whole rockered skis thing came up. But the equipment those guys are riding on was so bad back then. So with all that changing, there was a lot of interest in skiing. Skiing and snowboarding both pushed each other a lot. Like I think in the early days, skiing really pushed snowboarding, and then the freestyle side of snowboarding really pushed skiing and developed that, and then even the speed that snowboarders were going in like those, middle 90s, they weren't riding the same stuff, but because of the snowboards were, the skis were 200 centimeters skinny straight skis. Going fast it was either really fast or you're going slow. There wasn't much middle ground. So the flow came a lot with the ski development. Where am I getting lost here now? But anyways, I was, back from Hawaii, and then the skiing thing started kind of taking off, and I was just getting good at it. Like one of my friends, Austin Ross, grew up with me here. He was like a, friend through our parents' friends as a baby, and he was doing 360s when I moved back from Hawaii. And I was like, fuck, I gotta be able to do a 360. I remember I was doing like front ones and like back ones in the snowboard. I tried some front threes, but I was like pretty shitty,
Oh, the 360 is a tough one. For a snowboarder, it's like the 180 comes, The 360, you dunk that shoulder back and you land on your hips and your side and you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, kids have YouTube videos now that they can kind of get over that hurdle, but
Yeah,
back
no,
in the
back
day,
then-
a trick tip in a magazine, 6 frames, doesn't really help you understand how to do something.
No, everything was new. So I think, and I was like still learning to ride a snowboard and skis, you know, I was sketch on both still. I was like 10, right? So probably like flat based on the snowboard, not really.
Do you think that your dad's legacy and who your dad was and being so involved in that community drew you into being a skier over a snowboarder? Do you think that was the straw? Because if you're skating and people like Wes Makepeace, who's an absolute legend from this town, is like, Kye, you should board. Like, what made you choose? You got both of them. You can't 360 on skis. You can't 360 on the snowboard. Like, what made you choose skiing?
Well, like Austin there, I was saying, was a good example. I think around that time that there was a couple of ski movies that came out that were really groundbreaking. Global Storming was a matchstick film, and then 13 was like a poor boys movie that came out. And we watched all those movies, and I watched the snowboard movies too. So it wasn't like I was going one way or the other, but night skiing on Magic Chair, when that used to happen, I did a 360, and I just remember like the motivation just kept going from there. And then I was getting, you know, like we didn't have a lot of money either. So I wasn't like I was getting ski equipment basically because my dad, you know, we had, you know, access to cheap or free ski equipment in a lot of ways, and that helped. So yeah, then and the skiing thing was really cool at the time. It was like, you know, twin tip skis were just coming out. It was like this new thing. I was like, oh, cool. I want to do a 540, a 180 on skis and this and that. And I kept snowboarding for a bit, but the skiing, it just kind of naturally had more opportunity for me, I guess, at that time. So
I wish you would have landed the 360 on a board because your approach to the mountain.
Well, I can 360 on a board now. I mean,
I just wish you landed it first because then your life, maybe you would have kept snowboarding.
Yeah, but you know, it wasn't my dad at the time.
I love your skiing. I also just think of like your personality and what you've accomplished on your skis. If that same person found the snowboard, what that would have looked like for our community, and strictly out of like just jealousy. I want you on our team.
Well, you know, I am on both teams. And my
know.
friends were 50-50. Everyone was skiing and snowboarding, and like even later years, like I rode with the Worcester Valley Snowboard Club like half the days I was on the mountain, you know. And our skiing was inspired by snowboarding too. And I think at that time snowboarding pushed skiing into like this new place.
There was a video that I watched.
Oh, yeah.
And your dad was in it. It was in 1991. It was called Tales from the Snow Zone.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Sean Farmer's in it. Your dad and like a variety of other boarders and stuff. It's like this hybrid kind of video. And it's fucking... And dude, who else is in that video? Is Rode for Sims Forever, like... Palmer.
Palmer rode for Sims? Yeah, I guess
Palmer's
so.
in the video, and he's like a kid. He
Craig
does this
Kelly.
wicked fucking 360 and shit. Like Craig, like the whole movie, and your dad's involved in that. Did your dad know anyone from the snowboard community? Did they hang, or was there animosity and beef like people so often bring up about the ski and snowboard community back then?
I think it was just always a fun beef, you know, and the beef kind of started more in like places, I think, where snowboarding wasn't accepted. And I think up here it was accepted earlier than a lot of places. So yeah, I mean, like an equal amount of the people around me and my dad's friends were snowboarders as skiers probably. But skiing had a bit more of a thing where it was still like, you know, oh, these knuckle draggers. Like just imagine like these guys were riding these places and then this new sport showed up and there's new people riding the zones and you're like, what the fuck, dude?
Do you know what that's like? Is fucking snow bikes.
Yeah,
you know when you're
totally.
like fucking you sled out there and you're like just with your homies and then you hear them from like 5 kilometers away putting into the zone. You're like, fucking snow bikers.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, no, I think it was always a friendly beef kind of there. And even though there was some maybe animosity, both sports pushed each other. And in the end, it wasn't like my dad skiing that made me go to ski as much as it was like these other guys that were like, you know, doing cool stuff I really liked. You know, I looked up to guys like Seth Morrison and JP Auclair, like I was saying, and the new skis that were coming out was just something cool to try. So I got really inspired by that. Instead of just trying to follow my dad's footsteps, I was just like, saw this like avenue and put my head down so hard. And like, I still loved surfing and skateboarding and snowboarding too. But, the skiing thing was just like this passion, and the progression was happening not with me only, but with all these people around me. Like the first of everything was being done in the trick world, kind of, it was after snowboarding. So I don't know, got inspired by that. That's why I think I like really focused so hard on it, and I wanted to be a professional skier. I wanted to be, like a pro skater when I was a kid, but the skiing became like, I was like, oh, I'm getting sponsored now. I better like keep really focusing and loving this. And I just fucking lived it,
All right. I think this is a good time for a question from none other than Sean Pettit. Maybe it's more of a statement, but something for you to elaborate on.
Okay.
Thanks for sending this in, Sean. If you want to send in questions, join our Patreon, and you can support the show, and then you'll find out who's on the podcast next, and you can support the show, which, I mean, without the Patreons, I don't know where I'd be. So thank you for supporting the show. Without further ado, here's our boy, Sean.
Yo, Kye Guy, it's your pal, Little Sean. Maybe not ask a question here, but more ask you to enlighten everyone on Crew and its humble beginnings in the bonus features of Dubski 106. Peace.
Lil Peasy. Crew is like, Crew was a movie I made with Skylar Flavelle, a good friend of mine, when we were young, like 13, 14, 15. Sean was like 11 or 12, 11 probably. But yeah, we kind of like, that was snowboarding and skiing and skateboarding, basically the whole film. I think it was like 30, 40 minutes. It was a full length film. Crew ended up being put in the bonus section of the DVD for Dubski 106, which was Tanner Hall and Eric Iberg's first movie together.
Huge.
Yeah, so we were stoked on that. But before that, it was playing on Cable 6 in Whistler, which is the local cable channel. And there was a bunch of other films playing on there. But we love making movies. We were doing that from a young age. Skateboarding, that's like what you did. I had a VX 1000, and we'd shoot stuff. Skylar had an old like Super 8 and stuff too, and we were just into like shooting clips and skating. And I grew up hanging out with a lot of these older guys, and then as my friends around me started getting interested in skateboarding, I sort of fostered this crew, and even into skiing too, like Sean and Callum. I was like really excited because I was like, I didn't have anyone my age that was interested in this shit at the time, and these guys were like just naturally on the hill all the time and getting good at skiing, but weren't really involved in it, or they didn't watch like ski movies like me and Austin and stuff like that. So it was cool. I sort of felt like I had this opportunity to create a crew. We did. We had the 7th season crew. It was our little crew with like Jeremy Wallace, Tyler McMillan.
Bunch of Loke dogs.
Skiers, snowboarders. Skylar's snowboarder and stuff too. And Skylar and me made the film, and it was really funny. Everyone should take a look at it if they haven't. I think it's online somewhere. But yeah, it's good.
How big of a role did Tanner Hall play in your career, in your life? I mean, at that point, he was like already turning into one of the greats. Here we are 20 years later, and he still is.
Yeah, that was cool. That was an after kind of thought though. It was more of just being invited to go film with Tanner and those guys that were, my idols at the time growing up. So that was like a big shock, but it happened like step by step. There was such a good crew around here in Whistler at the time, and then Tanner coming to visit, and he ended up staying like at our house all the time when he'd come, and we just met, and I was like the Grom kid, and then it was just like, let's invite this Grom to come shoot with us, and they just treated me like the Grom, it was like, wasn't like, yeah, like brotherly love kind of thing, and it became normal quick, but it was also still like I remember the first time I got flown down to fucking Salt Lake City, and Eric Ivrig picks me up in the classic like white van, you know, like travel kind of van, and Tanner's in there and Mikhail Deschanel and some of these like heavy hitters, and I was just like, whoa, like what the hell is going on? For a long time, I just always felt like I was chasing those guys, you know. I was just the kid. I wasn't actually like skiing at their level, but it was for my age I was, you know. And it was the same thing in snowboarding probably with, you know, guys that think of like obviously Shaun White or you know, even Renz and these guys that were like so young compared to the guys around them. But then at some point you reach a level, you know, where you are at the same level as those guys, and but for a long time it's a surreal feeling for sure.
That was a really good name drop of Mikey, because Mikey being one of the youngest snowboarders to go in the backcountry and film the quality of clips that he filmed for his like breakout parts was noticed immediately. Like he was like 16, 17, and he's like in these films with like legit backcountry riders, and not because he was a kid. Like if you didn't know better and you didn't read and follow the mags and you didn't know his age, like his snowboarding quality was just as good as every other pro, if not like more exciting, because he had so much flavor and style. And I think from what I saw, and when I used to attend these premieres, when you and Sean and Cal got to that like 15 to 17 marker, like you guys are skiing not you guys aren't invited because you guys are the next wave. Like you guys are the wave. Like you guys are some of the most progressive freestyle backcountry skiers on like the planet. And for snowboarding, there hasn't been somebody like a Mikey in a long time. And I don't know if that always happens in skiing, like to be that young and to have the freestyle talent to take into the backcountry and have it translate in a tasteful way. We were talking beforehand here, but like a lot of contest riders, even if their contest life ends quickly or abruptly, they move into the backcountry, but the taste and style and approach isn't there. When I look at like the old films, like just after, like you would have been in like, I don't know, like baggy white and baby blue outfits, like that kind of like the years after that, like you guys didn't have the little kid style. You guys were like just ripping the mountain, and your riding could be alongside anyone else's riding and stand out and not be like, we're the kids in the film.
Yeah, I guess that's it. The culture was smaller then too, and I guess that's why guys like Tanner would be like, you know, see me and be like, you know, call, like little man, because you're kind of like a little man, sort of, you know, skiing a little bit like the older guys are, you know. You're
little and you're a kid, but you're riding like a man.
Sometimes.
Like, sometimes.
Sometimes you're still a kid, but yeah, no, I think, yeah, I don't know. It was probably cool, you know, for those guys to see that next sort of generation right there, when it was such a small growing sport at the time. Now it's just crazy. Now it's just, there's so much, you know, kids see so much online, and it's not like the magazine days and whatever. So progressions happen quicker, but yeah, I don't know. That was just cool time to be around.
Let's talk about, like, you're so young during this era. So is Sean. And I keep bringing up you two because for me living in Whistler, like you two without a doubt were like the biggest up and comers. Like, hands down. You guys are riding, like, big lines, like going to Alaska at a young age. Did you know about the inherent risks of riding the stuff that you were riding at that young of an age? Like, you're 15, 16, 17 years old getting dropped off on top of an AK line. They're not coming to pick you back up and stuff like that. And there's a lot of danger below you. Were you just like naive to all that and just like, we got dropped up here, let's just fucking shred this like we do? Or like fuck, like you guys were kids up on top of AK spines. Like little kids. Like think about when you bump into a kid and they're 16.
Yeah.
And then putting, it's like you guys are children.
I don't know. I think it was a progression. Like, it wasn't like, we'd be, hitting the cliffs on whatever, glacier chair and peak chair, and like riding these sort of lines that were like mini AK-ish stuff, or chainsaw ridge, just stuff right on the hill. But so I think once we got there, we already knew and watched the movies and, and then, had to kind of figure out that it's hard, like riding lines with big rollovers and whatever. So I think it just slowly happened. And then, obviously, growing up, with losing my dad to the mountains and stuff, I knew the risks. So I wasn't just like winging it. Definitely, if anything, I wanted to learn as much as I could about the mountains so I could survive them and do more in the mountains. But like anything, you learn the hard way, and sometimes take some risks you shouldn't and whatever. But yeah, I think for the most part, I wasn't loose. I sort of took the right steps.
I remember working in the village, laying bricks with a skier who was like sponsored, who was super into it. And he was like, oh, like there's a film coming out tonight and Kye and Sean are in it. And I was like, oh, those are the skate kids from the Circle that I see at the Circle shop hanging out with like Andy Larkin. Like, what do you mean? Like the kid? And they're like, those two are like the best skiers out right now. I had no idea. I just thought you guys were just like, six skiers. Sean had a Red Bull hat on. It was like, what up? Like, and then I remember going to that film at the GLC with him and being like, holy fuck. Like, snowboarding at that time got so freestyle oriented and so focused that like big mountain snowboarding kind of got overlooked. It wasn't as prevalent in a lot of the snowboard videos unless you were watching something like Absinthe. Where like this ski film, it was like POW and Big Mountain the entire time. And it was right at that time where I found like a lot of interest in that. I started connecting with that living here in Whistler and feeling that energy and getting excited when it snows and going up to peak chair and realizing that I want to ride a directional board and I want to set back my stance. So what fueled that progression? And I wanted to drag that on for a bit to put some emphasis on just how ahead you and Sean were. Like, you guys were at the forefront of you guys were the best. I don't know. Well,
snowboarding pushed my progression there too, like for sure, in the freestyle side of it, but also the big mountain side. And I think, I know like guys like you and Jeeves, when you moved to Whistler, you were in the freestyle world of snowboarding, but there was a bit more of a relationship, but which makes sense, between the big mountain side of both sports than there was, the division in the freestyle side, I'd say.
Yeah.
And I really grew up really the most, more than any big mountain skier or snowboarder, was Jeremy Jones, big mountain Jeremy Jones, obviously. The way he snowboarded the spines and stuff in Alaska, it motivated me more than anyone else to really learn how to take on like big lines, So I actually really studied the hell out of his snowboarding. And it wasn't until later when the skis, rockered fatter skis, came out where I could almost mimic the techniques that he would on his toe side, where you can slide down crazy shit. But yeah, I don't know. I think that he was one of the biggest inspirations for me. But I think in general, I was just inspired to be the best I could. And I had like these examples, like my dad and then all the modern pros at the time, like Tanner and whatnot. But I was also like, and I was getting some flack those early years from people that, like there was like the early days of the internet when it was coming out and there was all these forums and, I was the young kid getting hooked up and there was a lot of jealousy and people pissed off. And I think there was even a couple articles that came out that were controversial, but I was getting questioned if I was like just young and being hooked up too early, I think. And that motivated me a lot. I was like, shit, well, these guys, I really care about this, So I was like, I gotta be good. I can't suck, I can't be like a fall off. Because there was some young kids actually too. There were some other early young pros that didn't make it, on the scene. And, in that, one kid in France that was on Rosenau when I was signed at 12 years old too. And because I had like my dad's history behind me that some people knew, in those days, because it was not very long after he passed, really. It was kind of like, fuck, like I'm not getting hooked up because of anyone else. I'm not following his footsteps at all. I want to be my own person. I want to make sure that I'm good. So I don't know. I think that really pushed me more than anything, was like, it's not just not doing this. I'm not getting hooked up because of him. I'm like, I want to make sure I'm getting paid because I'm actually worthy, you know?
That's sick. Yeah, you're like, I'm not getting free shit. I'm not getting this opportunity because of my dad's credibility. I'm getting this because I can hang. And even if there was a little bit of doubt even in your own mind, that would fuel your progress to be like, no, I need to like step it up so no one can even fucking question this shit.
Yeah, and I think the timing was good with like getting invited to film with Tanner and stuff, because these guys weren't, you know, necessarily, my dad wasn't the first idol in his mind. They didn't even hardly know who he was, really, you know, coming from really freestyle background. And then the whole new school freestyle movement being so fresh, it was like, I wasn't, you know, I was trying to do my own thing. And the big mountains just came to me because I'm around them in Whistler, you know? So yeah, just sort of like, yeah, don't know where I'm going with it, but yeah, basically fucking product of my environment, I guess.
Is there anything that you tell yourself when you're on a line? Like anything that goes through your head every time? Do you have like a ritual or something, like a mantra? Do you do anything?
For sure. I'm pretty like OCD, I think. So I try to do nothing as much as I can, really. But yeah, I break a line down into like pieces, essentially, and then think about all those pieces and then combine it. And sometimes you'll like break a line down in your head and you have a spot that doesn't work, and it's like, then you got to, you know, figure out how to make it work. I'll still study a face. Like I'll look at, you know, a line on a photo and like stare for 30 minutes at it, looking at different possibilities and whatever. But when I'm up there, I try to like figure out everything I need to, whatever, if you're in the heli or hiking or whatever, but you fly over in the bird, say, and you look down and break the line up, spend as much time on the ground before that, figuring it out, get that look, get to the top, you know, look in, or if you can see anything at all. And then you just kind of go through that feeling and assessment where whether it's like, can you do it? Do you think you can do it? Or do you have doubt? Or sometimes you have a bit of doubt, but you still have a good feeling you think you can do it. So you kind of like, you're just weighing things out, I think, in your head. And then once you get to a conclusion, I sit back and like whatever. I don't like hang out at the edge of the cornice, like waiting, you know. I'm like, I'm just going to sit down here in this little, behind this rock. And whenever, you know, it's time to go, I've already done all the studies and assessment I can, you know. The rest of it comes from committing. But the hardest part is deciding whether to, you know, commit or not. You just have to, yeah, I think take a bunch of assessments, and half of it's like there's so many elements to it, you know. It's like how you're feeling that day and how the slope is feeling that day and what it looks like. And sometimes I won't make any decisions till pretty last minute. I don't like to, like, you know, overdo it. And even with I'm riding with a bunch of people, sometimes I just prefer to take the last pick, you know, and just, yeah.
Does visualization play a big role in riding like a line for you? Do you have to be able to like close your eyes and mentally digest what that line looks like?
Yeah, totally. That's kind of what I mean by like doing that assessment, is like in your visualization, you have things you're like, you know, you maybe you're on a line, you envision falling or where you could fall, or you envision like doing the 720 or 360 or whatever and landing it. And when you have more of these positive visions than negative visions, I think is when you start to like commit to what you're trying to do.
Do you always get dropped off, or do you only get dropped off when you have 100% confidence that you're going to ride the line? Or has there ever been times you get up there and you're like, fuck, I don't want to do this, but you already are, you're up there, like the heli's gone, there's no way to go down now? Like, have you ever wanted to pull out but you rode it anyway?
For sure. There's like times where you basically just survival ski something. Fuck. And maybe it's not the shot, you're not filming it, but you're just getting down it. Or or you fully get lifted. I mean, I remember one of my first film trips in AK. Actually, wasn't one of my first, but I just kept breaking these slabs off in the spine, and we actually the heli came and towed me out off of that face. But that doesn't happen often. I think most of the time you got to be pretty confident before you commit to something like that, and or you'll have an A, B, and C option, So
Okay, you just casually threw out there a fucking tow out. What does that look like? They throw a rope to you and they're like, "Hold on, brother." Like
no, just like a toe in. The heli was just powered on when I had to climb in because you're on a steep slope. The blades are
So it took off and then it came back to the slope and it picked you up.
Yeah, it was like this spot in Haines where I got picked up in the middle of a spine face, basically.
In the middle of a line?
Yeah.
You're like, fucking, I'm not going any further, dude.
And it was a group decision. I almost was going to ski the bottom because I could have probably cut off one more slab on this kind of feature and got out of it, but it was also like could have been, pretty serious. So it was just a better decision in that case.
When you look back at all of the lines that you've skied, and you've skied some fucking badass fucking lines, has there ever been a time where you feel like you rode a line that, looking back on that line now, you go, what the fuck was I thinking? Like,
I think a lot of times I can think of it's how I rode a line when I shouldn't have rode it that way, but also a few times maybe riding lines that I shouldn't have. But yeah, it's also just, it's like most of it's kind of stuff where it's like, okay, your slough's all gonna go to this one choke, and you like gotta make it by that choke, but there's a good chance because of whatever ice runnel or feature there is there, you might not get there in time, and you can't stop. I've had a couple like really big tumbles or like riding down large faces, and that happened a little more when I was a bit younger for sure. But yeah, that's just like I could have maybe not skied it or survival skied it or skied it a different way to manage my slough better, but yeah, so I don't know.
Another thing that I was always curious about, you rode the line that your dad passed away on. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was like an interesting. I was like 15, and there was this film this guy was making. He wanted to make this film and bring me to the place where my dad passed away because I hadn't been before. And yeah, I was 14 or 15, and it was my dad passed away in Chamonix, in case you didn't know, but it's like a pretty nowadays popular line right off the Aiguille lift on the west face of the Aiguille. And I ended up skiing that trip with a couple kind of legends that did ski with my dad, were like pro skiers like him as well that were friends of his and stuff. That was cool, but it was this weird large production thing, and it was sort of spoiled the experience a bit because that skiing the line was really cool, but the whole like film that brought me there was weird, and it kind of turned out a little weird. I never really liked the taste of it in the end, but just because it was involved with my family, and then the guy who made the story wasn't really involved with us that much. But anyway, I went there when I was 15. I skied that line. That was really cool. Ended up going back like a couple years later, and for 8-9 years in a row after that every season, and staying with like some local ski bum friends there, and like really like skied a lot of the stuff around there. But yeah, it was just cool to like, see where he died and learn kind of the mountains there. And I was really intrigued by what drew him. So from then on, later in my teens, I got really into climbing and just the whole mountaineering approach to things.
What did go wrong with your dad's? Like, was it an avalanche? I've heard the story vaguely, but like when you were skiing that line, was there the one point where you're like, oh, this is where it would have happened?
Yeah, I mean, these lines are big, right? It's like a 1,500 meter line, like top to bottom, broken up into sections, right? So it's a ski mountaineering objective that nowadays is not really that wild. But my dad was skiing it solo in 1996, in February, when he died, and his body was found by a couple Scandinavian guys like a day or two later. But yeah, it was just yeah, a lot of mystery, behind it. You know, he did, like in those days, like climbing mountains and skiing, people skied stuff solo, and some people still do, and it wasn't like way out of his realm. It was like something that was like pretty normal, but a slab of some kind broke off in the middle of the exit couloir that exits this line, and it's it's like 800 meters. So my dad, what is assumed, a slab broke under him from there was some slab avalanches. There's potential that it came from above too, because the cosmic couloir and everything above that on the one side drains kind of into it. Essentially, it was an avalanche, and he couldn't get out of it, and he went to the bottom. It was a trauma event, right? He was just buried up to his waist, but went for 800,000 meters or so ride down a mountain.
Has your risk tolerance changed a lot over the years?
Yeah, I think the amount of times I put myself in risk, and because you do play a bit of a numbers game in the mountains, no matter how dialed you are, So I think I've limited the time I put myself in exposure, and a little bit more for sure. But I wouldn't say that I backed down from skiing the same kind of stuff. It's just like the more you're pushing it every single day to the max, the more likely shit goes wrong. And I think I just choose my times more wisely than I used to.
Totally. Based on a lot of things, I'm imagining, like your gut, the conditions, etc., which I feel like is a great call. I've always really looked up to people who are able to pull themselves off of lines or features easily without hesitation when they have that gut feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about this a bunch, but like Chris is really good at that, being like, not really feeling it. And then he just chills. Like he's not even upset with the decision, where I'm a little bit of the like woulda, coulda, shoulda afterthought. Then I'm like, fuck, but like, imagine I did do that,
Yeah.
And that kind of eats me up. So sometimes I've gotten way better at it. But when I was younger, I was way more like, I'm just going to do this because I need a clip.
Yeah.
Like think about the clip. And then if you think about the clip over what could happen, it's late in the day, there has been some stuff sliding on fucking northeast slopes. Like, and listening to all those things are you good at listening to your gut?
Yeah. I mean, that's what my mom would tell me when I was a kid, and I was like going on these backcountry ski trips. And so just like, listen to your gut, that was always kind of a thing. So yeah, that's number one, I think, is listening to your gut and being in that environment enough that you know how to read it, seeing the signs. So being like really aware of everything around you, and it's like what we're talking about with fishing too, and anything. It's like that's what's cool about it, is it's so dynamic. You got to constantly be aware of everything around you in the backcountry, and partly why it's maybe hard for some of those park guys, like you were saying, just to like turn into backcountry riders. It's like it's a lifetime of experience it takes to really like know the mountains well.
And it feels like to me, or at least from my experience, I feel like the longer I'm out there, the more I realize just how little I know. Like it's kind of like the more you know, the less you know.
That's how people get scared out of it when they're old too,
Totally.
I don't feel experienced though. It's funny. Like I was like
you don't feel experienced.
I'll be no.
It's like not experienced yet, everybody.
I don't know.
How many video parts have you filmed? 20?
And that was a large lesson early in life and in my ski career, was like that the mountains are always boss. You have to have so much respect for them, and the more respect you have for them, the less you realize, the less you know. So
maybe we can lead into, have you ever not listened to your gut and had to pay some sort of consequences for not listening to your gut, and then rethinking about it after? You're like, fucking knew I should have pulled off that line. I knew I wasn't into it.
Yep, for sure. Happened, quite a few times. I think you learn from those are the big mistakes you learn from,
Take us through one of them. What was maybe the biggest learn?
Well, first, I got two things that are coming to mind right now. But on an early TGR trip, we were down in the North Cascades heli, and that's Teton gravity, if anyone knows, anyways. But yeah, I was walking a ridge, and you know that like, and it's kind of the windy, dry side of the range down there, in that area, and you're not supposed to step on the left side of the cornice, I'm walking that way. There's rocks on my right and then snow on my left, and the cornice is on my left. And you always want to walk on the rocks, right? And I'm walking the rocks as I'm trying to go up this ridge to get to a line. And it's like a school bus sized cornice with just 100 meters of pepper below that, and rocks. But I didn't think much of it. I stepped like literally inches off of the rock. My right foot was on the rock. My left foot was on the snow, and I stepped on the snow. And I guess, I don't know if it was a gut feeling thing actually, or if it was just simply moving too fast through the mountains without maybe slowing down enough to make proper assessment. Anyways, I step on the left of the rock, and the fucking school bus sized cornice goes, and both my foot slips off the rock and both my feet go, and I'm scratching, and my hands are just clawed onto the snow now that's fractured where the cornice went, and the whole thing goes and just tears up the slope below it. I would have been super fucked. I was like 16, I think, or I might have been 17, but I remember that was one of the scary early lessons I had there, and I couldn't move. I was clawed on, my feet were scratching, and I just was shouldering my skis. I didn't even have them on my backpack, so I was just moving fast, and my skis were still under my shoulder. My hands are clinged on, scratching. And the guide who was guiding us that day, he did have a rope, and he came up close, and I held long enough. It was okay.
He's like, just hold on. And you're like, oh, I'm trying.
Yeah, knowing there's like fucking rock below me. But yeah, the other, I don't know. There's definitely better examples, but the other one I can think of was in Bella Coola, one of the bigger crashes I've had on like a big face. We sessioned this spine wall, and it was like kind of the premier big lines we skied at that trip, and had like whatever epic 2 or 3 runs, and there was one more spine that I really wanted to ski, but it ended with like gullies on both sides, and all the slough, no matter what, was going to go into the same spot. And I thought, like, maybe I can sneak up on that left wall quick enough to see where the slough is before committing to beating it, Because if you don't beat it, you're just, from then on, the spine kind of ended earlier than the rest of them. So it was really had like a not train trap, but like the slough was all going to come together. So I took too much of the maybe, I was like, wasn't sure if I could do it, but I was like, I think I could probably back out and whatever, rip up onto the other spine. But it turns out, like, if I assessed it more too, that was all really rock hard and firm in that runnel, and then like near vertical to get onto the next spine over. So there was like no escaping it. And with the speed I had taken to hopefully beat the slough out of the spine, there was just no stopping. So I'm coming ripping in, and the slough's just a bit too far in front of me, and I start skipping out. I'm just like trying to avoid it because I can't escape left, and right's just the slough, and I end up fucking, just hitting the slough and went for a huge ride. Luckily no major injuries, but that was the end of my trip. Yeah, that was a big one where I was like, yeah, I kind of knew that was like a pretty good chance that might happen, but the line was so sick, I just wanted to go anyway. Or yeah, nowadays I'd be like, I'm just gonna pick the really clean ones and ski them better,
Yeah, like I feel like as you get older, like the secondary exit becomes important. You're like, oh, there's only one? There's one option here?
Yeah.
Like the totally. One option lines, like you only want to pick a handful of those through your career, and you want to pick them wisely because...
Yeah, and in that case, if it was a one option line, it's one thing if it's like, for sure I can beat my slough. There's not even a question. But if you have any kind of question about it, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's worth it.
And you touched on the snow not being like... It's more firm than you thought. You're like, oh, well, no.
Yeah, the snow is epic, but it's like when you're riding those, really big spine, like the runnels are always like rock hard, you know?
Yeah. And then like, yeah, and the scariest thing to me on like when you're riding out of anything really fast in the backcountry and then you see a little snow mound that you think is just like a fresh little thing that you can kind of just lift up your fucking nose and get over, and then it's actually just a solid piece of ice and you're like, oh my God, that's been hanging up there for a while.
I had a dumb mistake like that, hurt my shoulder pretty good and kind of my noggin a bit too. It was the first episode, I think it was I don't know if the crash was in it or not, but it was the first episode of that series I put out, the Sacred Ground series. And I just, it was up in Barney Bay when we were doing that heli thing out of Anderson Lake, and just sick, skiing rad spine, whatever, did a spin and skied some spine. I'm ripping out the bottom. There's like a big debris chunk, you know, like there's just debris from when a cornice had fallen, you know. I'm thinking like, oh, there's pow. There's got to be like a couple inches of pow on the top. And I just ollie and tail tap it. And it's so firm that it just rebounds off my tails and fully nosedive going like Mach 10, like just the dumbest crash. I was like, why did I try to ollie that stupid thing? And then, yeah, totally ruined my end of the season anyway. But yeah, hurt my shoulder pretty good.
It's gotta be getting slightly easier to pull off of lines and consequential things when you're in the backcountry, because when you grew up, it was the boom of somebody hanging out of a helicopter and filming you. And now it's gone to a drone where you're like, I feel like the pressure kind of scales back a little bit, because when there is a heli and there's a human hanging out of that heli, it's like, this is big dollars into your like moment. And if you're younger and you want to get a contract or whatever, you're like, okay, I'm going to go. But when there's this little pathetic little, and you're like, yeah, you can put that thing down, I'm actually not going to go.
Yeah.
Where there's a heli, they're like, click their boots together to let you know to drop, and they're like, drop, and you're like, fuck, okay.
Yeah, well, there was radios involved then too, but yeah, it was definitely.
I heard that was the Hosnick move on the DCP episode I just did. He would click his heels, and that would be like the you drop.
Yeah, we would always have another signal besides the radios, because a lot of times you need to have some sort of backup to make sure that each of you are dropping, know you're dropping when you're dropping for sure.
Oh, clear communication. Imagine like dropping in and they weren't ready yet, and your whole line just goes. That would be the worst feeling ever.
Oh, it's just way funner, more fun now. Everything is filming. Filming was always fun, especially with your homies as a kid, like just shooting skating and stuff. But like when it's turned into like shooting for the real films, and it was like every time the camera's rolling, you just hear 16 millimeter film rolling and shit. It was just like, damn, like, and everyone's like not rolling for long because it costs like a shit ton of money. So it was like the pressure was always on. Or then it was the same thing if you're burning jet fuel to get a heli shot. It's like you know, there's a lot of pressure. And then even like when like, you know, the Cineflexes came around and shit, it was just, I think the pressure started dropping off, and then the drones even more. It was just like, you know, got really fun. It still is really fun.
Did you put a lot of pressure on yourself? Do you still put a lot of pressure on yourself?
I would say so, yeah.
What was peak pressure for you?
The younger I was, probably the more pressure I put on myself. I put a lot of pressure on myself when I was young, I would say. I think I had a lot of anger built up inside of me just from kind of growing up in a broken home and having issues and shit. But then I also was like, culturally, that was what it was, you know. And I had other kids around me, like in Hawaii I grew up with, that were like not as fortunate too. And it was kind of a punk rock upbringing, you know. Skateboarding was one of those things where you could like let those emotions out, you know, swear and get really pissed off and break your board or whatever. Just like, you know, there was a lot of emotion. And then skiing was the same thing for me, you know. It was like, yeah, like fucking snap my poles in half or whatever, get pissed off. And I was definitely really hard on myself, and I still am. But yeah, I think it was, you know, it was more accepted, but it also wasn't, you know, like even at the skate park so many times I was, you know, people think I had a bad attitude and stuff unless they really got to know me, because I was vocal, and I'd get really angry when I couldn't land a trick or something, and have people tell you like, just calm down, or like you do one that was like not good and you know it, and they're like, that was sick, and you're like, fuck no, that was that sucked. That was whack. Like, fuck you. Don't say that kind of thing, you know? But
I feel you with that one. When they try and make you feel better, they're like, dude, no, that's still workable. Like, that was sick. You're like, fuck you. That was trash. Like, you know when it's good.
Yeah.
Like,
So, yeah, I don't know. I think just that skateboarding kind of upbringing was gateway to that a little bit. You know, you'd see it in skate movies even and stuff where guys are filming video parts, and it just meant a lot, you know. And like I said, to me, when being like 10 or 11 years old and like being in school and knowing that like I want to be a pro skier, you know, like I was like, I never took it for granted. I was always like really, I tried hard, and I think I had to try hard. I wasn't like even Sean, for instance, or Callum even more, is like really natural, you know. Callum like just didn't even know anything about the ski movies or watch anything, and he just like had sick style and was like throwing sick tricks, and I was just like, damn, like just kind of natural, you know. That's just who he is. And Sean too. Sean had balls though. Like he beat himself up because he had so much balls, but he would do things that it was just like, how did he just do that? Like, I know he hasn't thought of that before, you know, like where I think for me and some people had just learned differently, you know. And I think I really had to try hard. I really had to like, and still do. You had to kind of beat it into myself a bit, and I think that's okay. I think everyone learns differently, and even the guys that learn natural later on, maybe they have to beat it into themselves too. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm a try hard kind of guy.
yeah, I mean, like if you're gonna, there's a certain level of pressure you're gonna put on yourself if let's face it, your dad's one of the greatest skiers of all time. You start getting all these insane fucking opportunities. Did anybody ever say to you, like to your fucking face, like you're only getting this shit because of your fucking dad? Or did you hear anybody say that? Because I feel like that would be fucked up. Like,
I wasn't on the New Schoolers and shit, but there was the early years of like newschoolers.com forums. There was all these big forums, and this was before Sean even kind of came around, because I kind of fostered Sean into the ski industry. I had been entered into the ski industry through, you know, Roswell and Oakley sponsoring me at a young age, and Sean and Cal started. And I was like, okay, sick. I'm going to bring these guys in, you know, and make sure that like they're my homies, you know, and we all ski together. And
I feel like there's a certain level of progression that you would get through no plan B. Like you were saying to yourself, like, I'm going to be a fucking pro skier, like at a young age. And that's all you're thinking about. You drop out of school, grade 9. Like I think when you come up with a plan B, you're already kind of not fully committing to that thing.
Yeah.
Where if you're like, no, I'm going to be a fucking pro skier. That's my lane. That's who I am. That's what I identify with. Like, this is my fucking shit. You're kind of like, yeah, I'm down to be a skier, but I also might go to school and do this other thing. I feel like people who come up with a plan B, which is fine in life, and I think it's super important and valuable, especially in different areas of your life. But as soon as you start going like plan B, plan C, you're not committing to the thing that you're trying to get to.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, totally. I 100% agree, and I think that's why I made all those sacrifices. People look at, you know, people like us sometimes, and they see like, oh, this guy's got it made, whatever. It's his job, it's his passion. But sometimes creating a passion to a job, and you sacrifice things by like having no other option. When I was like young saying, no, I want to be a pro skier no matter what, I didn't have a normal upbringing, you know. I didn't go to like, you know, high school proms and the parties and hang out with all the same guys all the time. Like, sure, I did all that stuff, and I experienced stuff with older people too, but my upbringing was more learning from being on the street and being out there and traveling young and stuff like that. School came second.
And with that comes a lot of knowledge that is probably more transferable than you realized into the mountains. Like street smarts goes into backcountry smarts because you're thinking of like your surroundings and stuff. I mean, there's something about it, the way that somebody, what I would say I would rather travel through the mountains with somebody with street smarts.
Your last question was asking me about if I was bothered about my dad getting
Oh yeah,
recognized because of my dad or something. Right,
Yes,
right. That's
yes,
what it
true.
was. And I was talking with sorry. So the new schoolers forums and stuff that people were hating on. I didn't really care, but I just thought it was funny. But it was there was some times there where people questioned it and fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say about it. But anyways, fucking. Jeff Schmuck wrote an article on New Schoolers once that was controversial too and interviewed me, and I was kind of bummed afterwards because I was like, fuck, man, fuck these guys. This sucks. Like, not really. And even later in my career, that happened. Like, a lot of times people expect certain things out of you because you think you've carved a laneway, you know? But yeah, I'm not going to start ranting, but I think it was like X Games, real ski, real snow.
Yeah.
I never got invited to it or whatever. Which was whatever, it's all good. And I was trying to figure out why I couldn't get the opportunity, and they're like, oh, he's just a big mountain guy or whatever. I was like, what? Like, fuck, dude, I freestyle.
I freestyle.
And then I think my next year I put out a video part that had like a lot of like, you know, I kind of put my X Games real ski part out, even though it wasn't in there.
That's actually a good transition for a Patreon question from none other than Spencer Craig. I'm not sure if you know him. Spencer from No Limits.
Yeah, totally. I know Spencer.
Great guy. Hope you're doing well, man. He hit his head last year, and
yeah,
big fan of Spencer, and thanks for supporting the podcast. He says, I want to know how he feels about the ski industry. I feel like he's not so into social media and has never been. Has that hurt his career at all? He's so fucking beast, and I feel like he deserves so much more.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, social media I think it was, I don't know, it's hard for me because half of my career was in the analog era, and then I was part of that transition. And if you didn't make the transition quick, it was kind of tricky, I think. And then once you make the transition, it's changed, you know, like Instagram's changed and stuff over the years too. And I've never been that good at, you know, being really personal, I think, which is what people like on social media, maybe. I don't know. So I don't know if it's hurt my career. Definitely, my career could be different if I was, you know, maybe a little bit better on social media. There's a lot of times I look at people and think like, damn, I feel like maybe I should be making more money or doing this or that. But everyone kind of walks their own path, I guess. And I've sort of stayed true to myself so much that maybe it's hurt my career at times. That being said, I've managed longevity. So I've managed to, like, you know, be doing it still today. And if anything, what's hurt my career most is going through phases of maybe having a hard time continuing doing it for such a long time. You know, when you do it for such a long time, you need to find these different things within the sport and the industry that keep you interested. It's easy to get bored. Even though it sounds like real, you know, first world problem, but it's true. It's like, there's something to be said about like a 9-to-5 job where you go to work at 9 o'clock and get home at 5, and you leave your work at your work, and the rest of your life's the rest of your life. But when you make a passion from a young age, like me, into a career, it can be hard at times because your work never leaves you. You know, your work can constantly consume you to the point of like destruction.
Yeah, and I feel like the people that aren't obsessed to the point of destruction don't have that passion career. It doesn't happen. You have to be obsessed with it to some point. You know what I mean? There needs to be that. You need to be able to give it that extra bit, and that's what separates you from the people that didn't make it. Yeah. And similar to what we were talking about earlier, the fucking plan B thing. Like, if you only have a fucking plan A, you're giving it your fucking all. And a lot of people in high school, when they pick up a skateboard, a snowboard, any action sports tool, they pick it up, and there's always been the plan B. But then there's this certain people with that thing just they click with on a different level, and they're like, this is, like, I like this tool, but I like I identify with this tool more than I like the tool. Like I am a skateboarder. I am a surfer. Like, and to you, and what I've always really seen, and I've always heard this about all the different action sports communities, I feel like they have athletes like you that are a little bit of like what the industry would say is hard to work with. But I think that it's a privilege that you are in the ski industry, and the ski industry should be working for you because you are a skier. You know what I mean? That the industry it should revolve around someone like yourself who is a skier, who does live in the mountains, who does like.
You see it in the skate industry a little more, I think, and I appreciate that with the skate industry is that they kind of keep those people alive through they respect their history a lot in the skate world, which I think is really cool, and be nice to see that translate a little more into ski and snowboard to older people than me, not me obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely something about where the industry, like you should be grateful to be in the industry, and it's no motherfucker, like you're great, you should be grateful that I'm in, that I give you an industry. Like without people like yourself who's dedicated their lives to the mountains in every way, shape, or form, there would be nothing inspirational about this fucking culture.
Yeah, I mean that's where social media kind of goes wrong at times, and
there's too much weight on social media right now, for sure.
Yeah,
I think I talk about it all the time. I think that we'll go through a transition phase where brands will realize that not everybody needs to be a social media god, and there still is a lot of value in people who are just filming and out in the mountains, and there's a certain level of like you don't need to know everything about people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A level of what's the word I'm looking for? A level of like
privacy and professionalism, I guess. I don't know. Like in the end of the day, it's about the skiing.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what I mean?
and it's about the skiers.
Yeah, it's about that. It's about the act of it, and it's easy to these days kind of stray from that, I think. But I'm still doing it. I still do the social media. I just do it my way, and that changes sometimes throughout the year. Like just recently, I didn't posted for a long time because I decided for a bit I needed to like live without sharing it and just literally just be living in that space. And then it was hard to go back to posting again. You know, it was like I'm just living life, and I don't really care to share it all the time right now. Let's
talk about that. Like, what gave you that epiphany? What was like were you on your phone one day and you were looking at this device that you're scrolling on? You're like, I'm not going to play this game for a bit.
For me, it was just doing. Like I was, doing some cool like fishing adventures and was skating and surfing and whatever. And I was just like, I was just kind of doing it so much that I had all this stuff stacked up I could post. And I was just like, I don't want to do that. I want to keep doing. I don't want to, share. I just want to do. So, but yeah, anyways, I'm getting back into the flow of it now and whatever. And I think, maybe it will change a bit and social media won't be as important, but I'm going to keep just trying to do as well around it. I still think there's something special about, keeping private and not sharing everything on social media. Like even when it comes to your clips, shooting a video part and putting it out at the end of the season, it's pretty cool. And yeah, maybe that'll trend again one day.
I mean, it should. I mean, there's definitely, I think everybody at this point has realized that the 5-second clip that you put on Instagram doesn't hold the same feeling when you're watching an entire movie and you set aside some time to actually watch a film.
Mm-hmm.
Anything over like 30 minutes and you turn it on in your house and you get ready to watch like a movie, there's like your brain kind of switches gears, where if you're scrolling on your phone, it's almost like you're seeing everything that you want and the feed is curated perfectly for you to see everything that you're excited about.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when everything is exciting, it makes nothing exciting at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the way it is nowadays. Like we don't, and I don't like care too much about sharing what I share on Instagram anymore anyways, because everyone forgets about it, If you might post something yesterday that tomorrow no one's going to remember it because they've seen so much, So
Yeah, it's unfortunate that like the modern day ski, snowboard, action sports film isn't going to be a binging thing. You know what I mean? I think that if you make a really great film, the ultra core will watch it probably 3 to 5 times. Like the ultra core.
And I think that's where my career has stayed fairly healthy through all the years, is that the more you're like that, the your core audience that you have is worth so much more than the the not core audience. So say if I'm endorsing a brand and that's my kind of weight, that's my thing, is like at least all of my followers are gonna be core skiers that are interested in that. It's not, I'm not trending to the whatever influence. I think my audience is pretty core, so I think that alone is more valuable even with less eyes on it.
Totally.
Because those are the people that are going to go buy product from a brand for the next 10, 20, 30 years,
And those are the people, when they have a family and then they have kids, they're going to tell their kids about this brand that they've always fucked with and they've always kept near and dear to their heart, because they've kept people on that help shape the company on for an extended period of time. And people like, a great example is like, you look at Jeff Rowley on Vans, you know what I mean? Like he's a huge part of that whole brand. And like whatever, like if you delete those people, you start to lose what that brand is.
Yeah.
At the core of it.
I think the core to me, like, and my friends would say the same. They know I've all, like we were talking about, I've been really hard on myself with sports and whatnot, but hard on myself to be core too. I never wanted to sell out in any kind of way. So I think staying true to myself and staying really core has maybe held my career back in some ways, but in a lot of other ways, it's for me, it's just who I am, So I'd rather that. I'd rather be core and have a core audience than reach more people. That's just me.
Yeah. I mean, who do you want your audience to be? Like, who would you want to speak to? So let's say if you have a fucking huge venue and it's filled with people watching your movie. Do you want it a bunch of people taking selfies who don't even snowboard or skateboard and they're all there with their social media channels? Or do you want like 5,000 core skiers that are like about to go fucking shred this season and are so fucking excited and have a new sled and they're like, or they want a sled one day and they want to go ride a big fucking line and they want to fucking try new skis and they're fucking watching old videos and they're reading through the magazines. Like that audience is worth way more and they're going to have a way larger impact on their local communities. There's a number that gets tied to your name. And that number brands look at as it's like this special number. They have 100,000 followers. Well, what if 90% of those people live throughout the world and have nothing to do with skiing? You know what I mean? They followed you because a thing went viral because you used the viral song of the day, and you're just like, it's cheating. And you can also buy followers. So like that whole number is just like an illusion. It's a facade. It's like it's a mirage. It just derails like action sports all the time. And yet every time that I'm in like a deeper kind of negotiation for any sort of contract, it's like, yeah, so we're just really stoked on everything. Just so like, how many followers and what's your analytics kind of looking like? And you're like, can you just like look past that and sponsor the individual?
Yeah. And there's no real way to show them like how core that audience is or like the difference. So it's kind of tricky, I guess, but
that's why the person who you're dealing with needs to be somebody who will understand what you've done. They need to be the roles for all of the companies in action sports need to be somewhat filled by action sports enthusiasts to some degree, so that people know who you are and what your kind of legacy is and what it's bringing to the table. Because if people don't understand who you are, they don't understand what value you're bringing to the table.
Totally. And yeah, that was the difference with like kind of growing my first part of my career being analog and then moving into the new kind of day, is that in those early days, you you relied on a film coming out. Like you work with a film company that year and you shoot photos with a photographer that sells them to a magazine, and maybe your sponsors put some ads out or whatever. But you were you were competing in an event, and that event, there was all these things around you that brought, you know, the attention to you. So all you had to focus on really was the craft and being professional, you know.
Totally.
But nowadays it's like you're responsible yourself for doing all that, you know. So you'll get like, you know, a lot of fake athletes out there, a lot of fake riders that maybe don't deserve it, or maybe they do because they work hard, but they don't. But it's different than just working purely on the craft, you know.
Do you know who's somebody I feel like really aligns with your whole motto and kind of what we're deep diving into here, and somebody else that I feel like really is letting their riding do the talking, and they're not the greatest on social media, nor do they really care. They just are a snowboarder. You know what I mean? They're not trying to be one. They are one. And it's like, you aren't trying to be a skier or a mountaineer or somebody who loves the outdoors. That's just who you are. You're sponsoring Kye, somebody who skateboards, surfs, mountain climbs, you know, does all those things, not because they're trying to be anything they're not. Just that's just who you are. And to that, I think Bryn, who you've helped 100%. Out a ton, is that kind of same person. You've also mentored him a little bit and have given him some opportunity. Would you agree?
100%. Yeah. Bryn's just like a product of his environment, you know, and makes me, you know, I don't consider myself like a Whistler local anymore. I've lived in Pemberton now for more than half my life, and Whistler's changed so much since the days that I grew up here that I'm not really proud to be from Whistler. But when I think of Bryn, I think it makes me feel proud to, you know, be from here, because Bryn is like, he is what it's all about, you know. I hope he's in natural selection this year. That'll be sick.
Okay, that perfect segue here, by the way. We hype up Bryn a lot on this podcast, but it's for a good reason. It's like, I'm not trying to be biased, but like his level of snowboarding is there, and there's just an element to being something versus trying to be something. It's like, are you a snowboarder, or are you trying to be a snowboarder because there's a certain look that comes with that you want to like, you want to look like that? Well, are you a musician or are you not? Like a real musician, there's a difference between the two. Totally. But now it's hard to tell the difference when you have social media, which you can build an image around your fake image.
Totally. And yeah, Bryn is a snowboarder, and I think that's what makes him so good, especially in the backcountry with those lines, is because you can't just decide to ride powder and do it. You know, you have to live it, and he lives it to the point when like he's comfortable in places that people aren't normally comfortable in the mountains, and he's comfortable doing like a switchback 5 off something that other people are not comfortable doing a method, you know. That's just because he's out there all the time doing it. He's not one of the guys that's like, when I finish competing, I'm going to go to the backcountry and then whatever, fail for 10 years. It's like Bryn's going to spend 10 years doing it before anyone even recognizes him.
And he'll do it 10 years after he's been recognized. Exactly. He'll just be in the mountains. To segue here a little bit, just because you brought up the hopes for Bryn to be a natural selection.
Yeah.
One of your good friends and mentors hit me up with a little bit of something nice to say, and then it segues into a question. So bear with me.
Okay.
Little bit here from Tanner Hall.
Oh, nice.
One of the illest ever. That's for fucking first and foremost off the bat. Not too many questions because I know him pretty well, and there's a lot of crazy stories, and it's hard to pick one that comes to the brain. But I think the coolest thing about Kye is just going in the mountains with him and seeing that confidence and just seeing the love and passion that he has for the mountains, because it's like infectious, and it just gets you that much more hyped to be in the mountains. And then when he's on one, it's just pretty crazy to sit back and watch sometimes, because his mountain knowledge and just how he looks at faces and how he looks at mountains and skis them is just, you can tell he's out here serving his purpose, and it's just really wicked to, have the chance to see him growing throughout his whole career to the man he is now. I mean, on and off the hill, the kid's just a boss, and he handles business and he gets it done. And, you know, his taste in music, lifestyle choice, you know, it kind of coerced with mine way back in the day, and it still to this day does. And that's why we have such a strong connection. So, yeah, stoked you guys at Airtime Podcast gave him a little platform to come and speak his words. And, yeah, big up. Hope that helped.
I love T-Dog. Tanner's like a brother. And yeah, fuck, I owe him a lot in my career and life, you know, for taking me under his wing at a young age and whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I just, yeah, grateful to, you know, have people like that I've been able to spend time in the mountains with for that long. And I think I've just, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to see. Yeah, it's fun to see because like I've spent more time in the mountains in different scenarios than Tanner over the years, you know, and he's taught me so much in different ways. But now when we're in the mountains together, I think anything that's really special to you, you don't really want to share that with people that you don't care about, you know? And
Well said.
Tanner's one of those guys that like, no matter what, he's my brother, you know, he's like, so whenever we do get to spend time in the mountains and, you know, and when I'm on one, it's probably because I'm around him and around the right people. And, so yeah, I think that's really important to me as I get older too, is like to share those moments with the right people.
Yeah, I love that he said that your skiing's like infectious. Like, I love that because there's certain, when I'm out there in the mountains, there's certain people that bring that, like, Eric Jackson's a great example. Whenever I'm out there with him, he's like fairly positive the whole day, and he wants to work hard, but he's laughing when he bails, and he brings out like he brings out some special characteristics. He brings out better riding in me every time I go out there. I'm always just like, I start feeling like, I'm like, fuck yeah, like I kind of want to send it right now too. And the vibes are good, and like you ride so
Dude,
good.
That's just how it is. That's how I grew up too. Like you skate the bowl and there's a session, you know, like I don't like skating if there's not a session. Like I live in Pemby and I come skate West Park in the summer when I'm around, you know, cause I know in Whistler there's going to be, you know, like whatever, Beals at the skate park every day. And like these guys are going to be there and there's probably a bit of a session going on and it'll be fun. That being said, sometimes I'm old now, so sometimes I go skate at this, I'm getting older, so I go skate and it's like, I got 2 hours, I'm going to like do this, and this and skate and then go home. But at the same time, what brings the best out of you is when there's a jam, you know, when there's something going down. And that's what's cool about things like, you know, whatever the natural selection and like film and video parts and this kind of stuff, because you're just surrounded by a bunch of dope people, and I think that's what brings out the best in everyone.
Oh, I totally agree. And to further elaborate on that, we have part 2 from Tanner.
I do have one question, and that question is, if Kye gets a spot to the natural selection tour up in Alaska in April, what are you gonna do?
What am I gonna do?
I do have one question.
I don't know. I haven't seen the venue, but I'm gonna ski. That's for sure.
Are you invited?
Apparently, yeah. I mean, Travis and I are familiar. Like, you know, I know Travis. He's somewhat of a homie. So I don't know who makes the call, but I know some of the skiers that are kind of trying to be involved with Travis or like Travis and stuff. And I've already been hit up by them. So it sounds like I likely have a spot, which is sweet. I can't believe it's in Alaska. Like, snowboarding's not in Alaska. Why is skiing in Alaska? It's crazy.
It's been in Alaska every year except for last year. So I
yeah.
think it's going back again.
Oh, snowboarding's going back. Okay.
I mean, I haven't gotten the details. I might got fired. I'm a judge right now, and nobody likes judges.
Right.
And so like I might have gotten let go. I don't know what my position is this year.
Okay.
Maybe I got the job. Who knows?
Hopefully you're there. That'd
I don't
be
know.
sick, dude.
We'll see. I mean, me judging. I mean, I could judge big mountain skiing because I have a good idea.
You probably could.
Oh, dude.
For sure.
For sure.
But like, I don't know if the ski and snowboard venues or events, I don't think they'll even be around each other.
No.
But it'd be sick if all the same homies were there. It'd be dope for, I don't know. I just like having people like you around. It'd be fun.
I would do anything to watch you ski fucking that live. That would be fucking ridiculous.
But
yeah. you know.
It's just one event. It's not a tour, right? So like, if it was a tour, that'd be really cool. Cause then, you know, I've always wanted to be able to like, just like kind of like be like, oh sweet, I got a tour to do this year. That's kind of fun. But just to have that event, I think it's gonna be really good for the sport. It's been almost 10 years since the 2016 was the last Cold Rush, Red Bull Cold Rush. And those events were really
Did you win
similar.
the last one?
If that was the last one I did, yeah.
Hell yeah. My dog.
But we haven't had anything like it in a while. So it's been like, you know, and I've written up contests. I mean, I still have it somewhere. I had a whole criteria written up.
Oh, you had an idea and a concept behind it?
Oh, yeah. Before natural selection was natural selection.
Oh, like when it was ultra natural and super
yeah,
natural?
he did that earlier, but then I had this cool idea, and I still think kind of like a Triple Crown event, you know. I still think there's some potential to do one around here. It would be really sick, but
well, go win this natural selection thing, get your foot in the door there, and then help them fucking reshape the ski one in a couple of years too. Like,
yeah, totally. We'll see. But anyways, just having that opportunity for the sport's gonna be big. Like already when that announcement came out, I think there was so much hype around it that yeah, man, it's gonna be sick. I can't wait. And if it's in Alaska to get to go to, I'm assuming the Tordrillos for, you know, get a paid trip to go to Alaska or whatever. I don't think we're paying for the heli time if we're in the event, right? But
is there anybody notable that you really want to see at natural selection other than Bryn on the snowboard side, but in the ski side?
For sure. Bryn's got to be in the snowboard one at some point here. But the ski one, yeah. I mean, like I know Marcus Eder and Sammy Carlson and myself. I think all three of us are for sure. We're going to be in it. And that's rad. Those guys for sure have to be there. I don't know if Dane Tudor is going to be in it. Dane Tudor, I think in my mind, 100% has to be there. He should be there. I mean, he's won the Red Bull Cold Rush in the past and things like that. I mean, Sean hasn't been skiing for a long time, but it'd be funny if he was there. I'd be sick.
Right. I thought the same thing as like a wild card, like to ask him, like, yo, would you
just little Peasy just throws down?
Do you think he could just fucking go in front 3 100-foot cliff still? You think he still got it?
Oh, for sure. But I don't know. Like I don't know. It's gonna be different now than it was back then too. And the level has come up a bit. It'll be really exciting. I'm stoked to see what all goes down. But yeah, I don't know who else. Like fuck, I think Parker White would be sick to see there. Yeah, there's a bunch of rad dudes. I think it's only 9 people from.
What's your approach?
Depends on the venue. I hope the venue's gnarly. Not like no. I just think it'd be cool, like to see like a real spine face where like you know, tricks can still be thrown, but like technical lines where you actually have to have some really good like line reading skills would be cool. But whatever it is, it just depends. I think it's head to head, right? Which that's always interesting to me because like even watching natural selection now, like. The only difference in the criteria of the events I was thinking up before those came out was, I think it's exciting. I get it. It's really cool because the viewer gets really into it. But there's times in those events where someone has a way higher score than another guy and they don't make it to the finals because they're going head to head with somebody. You know what I mean? You go head to head with somebody, that round of head to head, the guy who lost that round could have a 10-point higher score than the guy in the next round that won. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you compared those two runs...
Oh, you mean compare and contrast all of the numbers rather than the head-to-head.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I'm not saying...
Because then you're only getting the best.
I'm stoked to go head-to-head with some skiers. It's cool. I'm down with that. But I think then you get the best rider of the day makes it to the final instead of just the guy who was better than the other guy, that one other guy, instead of better than every other guy, if that makes sense.
Is there any nerves going into this, or is it just pure excitement?
There's nerves. That's what's exciting, I think. Nerves of excitement, but I'm not like, it's one event, right? So you can't like the whole season. Like if it was 3 events or a tour, it'd be a little, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to take this pretty serious. Not that I'm not going to. but it's just one event. It's one day or 2 days, I guess. Probably.
Yeah, go there, do your best, and go home.
Yeah, that's all you can do. And I think go there and have fun. And my goal is to like just go there. Like I want to ski the sickest terrain possible, and that's what that event means to me. And that's what skiing's been missing, is an event that takes us to the absolute most progressive terrain that is, allowing us to progress and or show our full potential. So I think just being in Alaska doing an event like that, it's going to be great. My mentality and my strategy, I think, is just going to be go ski and maybe one run is technical more and one run's going big, or I don't know, whatever. In that case, it's always about like reading the wavelengths, seeing what's everyone doing, what's this guy doing, because I'm gonna do something different. You
hope.
Yeah,
you're gonna have something picked out, and you're gonna be like, I'm gonna ride that line. I'm gonna ride that line.
Yeah,
and then you get picked, and you're like 7th. You're like, damn it, my line got taken.
It's a few runs, right? Isn't it? Or
yeah,
it's not just one run. So when it's a few runs, that's cool. That makes more strategy, and you can tone it down or tone it up when you need to.
It's 2 runs, and then if you make it to if they keep the formula the same, 2 runs, and then you move on, and then 2 runs, and then
both
you move
runs
on.
count, or just best of 2? Best run of 2.
I think.
Yeah,
I think they've changed it. I think they've changed the formula throughout the years.
Yeah.
So depending on which is the last, it's gonna
we'll
be.
See. Yeah, I don't know why they're doing it. I could care less if it's natural selection or whoever does it, but we need like a progressive backcountry ski event like this.
Oh yeah.
The Freeride World Tour isn't what we do, guys like, Sammy and myself, or it's not our thing, and this is going to be really good for the sport, I think. So I'm stoked. I think it seems weird to me too. I was like, oh, I didn't expect it. I was like, I don't believe, because there's been talk for a couple of years about natural selection coming to skiing, and some guys telling me it's happening, and I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it, kind of thing. Because why? But I see now, maybe the investors need to broaden their scope. There's no money in that shit. It's really hard to make money.
Dude, snowboarding is 1/10 of the size of skiing.
Well, no, I mean, I think the free ride side of snowboarding is actually quite large, and especially right now, skiing is, to me, snowboarding has gotten a lot cooler in recent years, and skiing's kind of got lame a little.
Yeah,
bit.
but go to Europe.
Yeah,
and go on a
that's
fucking
the thing.
chairlift.
In Europe,
There's one
it's
snowboarder
huge.
for every 100 skiers.
For sure. So overall sales, but you're talking like rental skis and all kinds of shit. It's totally different sport than like
skiing
the backcountry
is just
stuff.
way bigger. And if you're trying to get someone like, let's say the North Face sponsors it, I'm just throwing out a brand,
right?
Or Arc'teryx. They have snowboarders, they have skiers.
Yeah.
Are they more likely to inject more money into an event that showcases both of their athletes? Like, for sure.
Totally. So if they need money, they gotta, and then apparently their natural selection is doing surf and mountain bike too. So it's like, it makes sense. They need to broaden out.
And Travis knows all the right people to reach out to. He's friends with all the best surfers, snowboarders, skiers, moto.
It's going to be sick. It's smart. It's super smart. And then maybe later on it can get so big that there's 3 ski events and 3 snowboard events, each year. And I don't know, that'd be cool to see.
All right, let's go through 2 of your favorite clips that you've ever filmed, and which I know that you have 15. How many video parts? Probably 20.
Yeah, I don't know.
20 since Crew.
I haven't counted, but yeah, different film companies and some of my own films and whatever. But
actually, okay, let's actually reframe that question to first, what's your favorite video part that you've ever filmed, and then 2 of your favorite clips you've ever filmed.
Man, I don't know. My favorite. I'm never that stoked on my video parts. To be honest, I think the stuff I filmed that ended up being the first couple episodes of my Sacred Ground series that's on YouTube. It's on Matchstick Productions. They distributed it on their YouTube channel. I think it was Formation and Migration, or Formation. Can't remember the names of my own little videos, but yeah, Formation, Migration. Anyways, the first 4 episodes are definitely those 4 episodes in that series, which is recent. I don't know if that's why, but I'm pretty stoked on all the footage in there. There's nothing I really cringe at too much. So
sick.
Yeah, there's like, the Micah stuff where Bryn came with us in the 3rd episode, and then the 4th episode, I got some really good stuff in the heli around Pemberton, and yeah, I don't know. I think that stuff for sure. As far as video parts go, I look at it as one kind of project. It's 5 episodes. The 5th episode's kind of its own thing. It's still cool, but it's more like a, love to skiing. It's like footage in Blackcomb and stuff like that with some backcountry stuff too. But the banger ski stuff in the first 4 episodes is probably my favorite video parts I've done. Numinous was great too. I put so much into filming for that. Even though the first year I got hurt at the end of the year, but yeah, I think it's still that. And then for shots, I think there's a few things in Numinous that stand out for sure, a few lines, and yeah, a couple pillow lines in that film that I skied that maybe didn't get filmed exactly how I wanted, but they are my favorite pillow lines probably shot on film. For lines themselves, I skied a line in the Tantalus range for the movie All I Can. It was, I think it came out in 2011, pretty sure. But yeah, I skied a line. I was with Callum and buddy Matty Richard and skied I guess it's the northeast face of Osa in the Tantalus range. There's a spine wall with a big kind of no exit cliff and not really recognizable in the film, but there's a big crevasse below that and shit too, so you can't really fuck up. And it's one of those things where I was like, it just looks so sick. I don't even like close out lines. It's not my thing, but I had to ski it that day, and it was one of the raddest feelings ever. That line stands out. Another one would have been the Sherpa cinema film that came out after that called Into the Mind. I skied a line called Morrison Hotel in Bella Coola, which is right next to a line I mentioned a crash about earlier. But yeah, it was just a really big spine line and one of the coolest aerial shots I've had from the drone, from the Cineflex camera. And that line probably stands out as the coolest aerial, my favorite, aerial shot.
What about the shot do you like so much? Take us through the line a little bit. If this is a top shot.
Yeah, it's I kind of cross 4 or 5 flutes, which are steep little spines, at the very top of the line, moving right. But I have to go back left. It's just the way the flow of it kind of worked. And the shot's tight. You just see me drop in. And the whole shot is just the classic Cineflex with those lenses, how they can just go from being fucking seeing your eyeball to pulling way back, And it just keeps pulling back. And I'm flying. I'm skiing this line that's got blind sections and stuff like that, but I'm skiing it pretty confidently at a really high speed, and I exit, and the slough was ripping fast because it was really dry powder and just really good conditions. That was a series of 3 days there. You have those trips once in a while where everything lines up, and that was one of those trips. We had really good conditions, and you're flying out the bottom, and there's a 50-foot wall of powder cloud next to you, and over the Berkshire coming out, and it's just that sick feeling, you start the top of a technical line that's techy and kind of small that turns into one big spine where you're flying to a tight exit around some cliffs, and then the slough, you kind of reconnect with where the slough comes out afterwards, and I don't know, just one of those things. It probably is similar to getting spit out of one of the biggest barrels of the year at Pipeline or something, I would imagine.
Is it I think I remember the shot, you're traversing, if you're just watching the film, Rider's Right, and then you call them flutes, but the little spine wall, and then you still air a 30 or 40 foot cliff at the bottom.
There's kind of an air in it, but honestly there's not really much of an air. I kind of air into a gully to exit it, sort of. It's more the crossing of spines. I cross a few spines at the top, then ollie 1 or 2 other ones, and then get onto a pronounced one where I kind of just rail some big turns on it, and to me, I don't know, that's just the funnest, is just linking up, we were talking about earlier. You break a line that's that big, it's that line's, I don't know, 1,500 feet or something. It's a long line, probably, or even longer. No, not quite. But anyway, you break it down, you find I usually break it down into 3 sections where it's like a top, middle, and bottom. And the whole way down, you're just connecting all these dots at a really fast rate with a little bit of variations, because whenever you're in it, you kind of change some things, sort of. But yeah, I don't know. Just really fun when you kind of hit all the dots and fly out the bottom, and it worked out.
When you rode away from that line in particular, were you like, that was fucking sick?
Yeah, it was like the kind of feeling where you're like, I want to do that again. That was crazy. It's fun.
Like, when you ride a line like that, do you ever want to go again because you feel like you could get more technical, or are you like, there's a track in it, not so good? Like, do tracks bug you?
A line like that, tracks don't bug me. A line like that, though, you don't want to ride the line again. You want to sit down and like probably have some nicotine or something, you know, and then look for the next line. But there's zones like that zone. We spent that whole morning in that zone, and it was like, we want to just session this zone. Even last spring, I did a trip to a remote part of the coast I won't mention, but to a lodge, Butte Inlet Lodge, and really beautiful place. But we're working on a segment there, and we had a really good first trip this year. We're going back next year or this season. But yeah, like it was the last day. There was just a sick zone, like smaller stuff, but like spine wall zone. And you just get, when you find a zone like that, you're like, all right, we're gonna, especially if you're filming, you're like, we're gonna spend, you know, half the day at least here and just pick it all apart. And there's lots of shots where we're skiing over tracks and stuff, you know, but it's like there's, you know, freestyle features in the lines and stuff, so it doesn't really matter.
If you ride something good and then there's something left, the viewer can often pick up on that, and they're like, dude, but imagine he rode that thing just to the right, and then you go back, like there's a pillow just hanging there perfectly, and you're like,
yeah,
oh, if only he would tap that, and you go back and tap it. Everyone's like, yes, that's exactly what that was calling for.
Yeah, well, in some zones you get to a zone and you're like torn what line to ride first, because there's so much sick stuff you want to ride, so it's fun to pick it apart. And it's just like we were talking about with like the jam session contest kind of vibes and stuff, and you're like at a zone, it's like just that whole session's what it's all about. You know, you ride one line and it just gets you like more in the flow to ride another, especially in the backcountry and big mountains, because you go from 0 to 100 real quick. You know, it's one of the hardest parts about it, especially filming. You know, you're sitting around a lot, and then all of a sudden it's just like go, go, go. So I like that. Like when I'm going, you know, everyone knows that. Like my friends like Leo Horn and guys I film with and stuff, they know that I like to like have the opportunity to like get in a flow. So if I have a zone like that where there's like multiple lines and hopefully the right amount of skiers, then that's the best, because you just get to like get into the zone. You ride one line, you ride the next line, you just start getting more in the flow, and you don't stop. You're just at that point, you put the filmers in the right places, and your LZs are in the same spots with the heli, hopefully, and you're just lapping. That's why we ride the ski hill too, and that's why like that's so important to me. Is like, you know, I go sled skiing and stuff, but mostly to film or mostly to access like a specific line I want to ride. Otherwise, like the best days of the year for me are riding on Blackcomb, you know, lapping those first couple laps in Spankies, and then hit, you know, like road hit laps on the rescue road and like whatever, you know, just like the mileage of just like moving and skiing and being, and, you know, harder to capture for sure on the camera, but like that's when you ski the best for sure, is just when you're in the flow.
You're a big, what I would say, explorer. You like to get out there, find new zones. Every time I see a project of you, you always tend to open new doors in the sea to sky area, especially when it comes to pillow areas. What kind of work goes into finding new zones? And you mind sharing any zones with us? Come on, man. Help us out here.
Well, I've noticed
I've seen the pillow stacks.
Man boys have already been hitting up some of the pillow stacks. But no, over the years,
slowly finding them.
Yeah, no, I haven't been exploring pillows specifically as much the last couple of years, but
like there's a lot of untapped in Pemberton, I think. Like just terrain, whether it's pillows that you can access on snowmobiles or heli, like heli. It just seems like there's a whole other world in Pemberton that people still have yet to untap at all.
Yeah, well, stuff's been tapped, but there's still room for more, and I think almost more for the pillows than the alpine, because you're looking at these little rock bluff boulder fields that if they're not visible from the road, you can't see them from anywhere unless you heli by them. But heli skiing, you're generally not landing in these cuts in the old growth, or whatever. You're kind of like,
depends how much budge you have.
Yeah, you got hopefully, but yeah. So I don't know. It's just like that what we were talking about earlier with the river. Going around the next corner and you find the next sick piece of water or whatever. And it's the same with the pillows, and especially walk. Like that's where ski touring really goes hand in hand with filming. You just walk and you come upon these things and whatever. For me, it was all Google Earth's obviously a huge tool nowadays, and looking at Google Earth and finding north-facing boulder fields, and then find those and try to go there at the right time. And
isn't there like a gated pillow zone in Pemberton?
There's some gated roads that are sled access that might have pillows
that you have access to, that you might have the key for the gate.
No, I don't have the key.
No, not me.
No, there's some potential. There's some private access to some spots, but it's not really private. It's just most of the access of is to get to a lot of the best stuff, for sure. It's not that far out.
Okay, most people consider Kye either big mountain fucking ripping or pillow god. What do you like more?
I don't like God, so maybe big mountain ripping, I guess.
Pillow dude. Pillow guy.
Yeah. But no, I put a lot of effort into, finding pillows. And for me, like, it goes back to like a lot of I don't know shit really. Like I've definitely been the first to ski some pillow zones that I'm pretty proud of. And I like that exploring kind of side of things. I get bored of going to the same spot every year. I gotta to stay interested. I gotta R&D my equipment with my sponsors and make sure I'm riding on stuff that's really I'm stoked on, and make sure I'm going to new places and getting stoked on new terrain. And that's what kind of drives me. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's why I've explored a lot with the pillows. But what was I getting with that? Yeah, I don't know. Love pillows.
Fuck, me too. They're honestly the best.
Love-hate relationship, though. It's kind of like one of those things where, it's always that you got one shot to ride the pillow. That's one thing where I don't like tracks. Pillows, lines, and tracks don't go hand in hand. Unless it's like broad. For sure, you can session a broad pillow zone like we've done in a lot of the films I shot. But when there's like one prize stacker line, you got one shot at it. And it's pretty cowboy, one pillow's spaced out a little further from the other pillow that messes, your line, and you got to slow down on this one a little bit. And snowboarders, honestly, have always historically had an advantage to riding pillows because you can really lean on your tail to slow down. And on skis, you can now, especially with the newer skis. And skis, you can bounce and stomp a lot, but you really have to ace your line. You can't wheelie as easily as a snowboard, And a lot of pillow lines on a snowboard, you can get away with just, firecrackering your tail down them. And
yeah, but you guys can land on your backs and it's still a clip.
I love that you said that. No, I can't. That's for sure.
Are you into the back slap? Is that a clip?
No.
Was there a certain year where it was cool until 2005, and then it was like back slap shouldn't be clipped?
The skis back then too. It was like the skis. We didn't have the right skis to be able to ride your tails without hitting your back, Talking about stiff, short tails on your skis. And but it's the mechanics of it. You're standing straight, facing straight down the mountain, not side to side, And snowboarding, you rip your knees sideways, and skiing, your knees go backwards. So if you don't 4-point land it, stomp in the right position, it's not going to be a clip. You got to stay balanced, and you got from just in front of your toes to behind your heels, where on a snowboard you got however wide your stance is. It's a wider platform.
Okay, so back slaps aren't cool,
but snowboarding hand drag wheelie ride outs aren't really cool either.
No.
But they are sometimes acceptable.
You know what I okay, just
semi
because you're such a
backslap
skateboarder, you
is
know,
okay.
somebody, let's say frontside flips a big set, and then afterwards they fucking revert in the landing, like
Yeah.
far out, and they put a hand down. Sometimes
It's okay. Sometimes
it's okay.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I think it goes the same for skiing and snowboarding. Although like a really bad backslap is like not good and very obvious. So, but yeah, like there's a time and a place where it's some little bits are somewhat acceptable. But yeah, being able to slow down on pillows is hard, and most of the time, you got to manage that perfectly. But what I was gonna say earlier is, guys, like I watched in snowboard movies when I was young, like Sheen Campos, for instance. Sheen still is really sick. I seen like a clip of him when he was, helling some people because he always gets out on the heli and does cool shit still. And he's
Good pillow boarder. The White Wizard.
Sheen might be the best pillow boarder, one of them anyways. But I used to watch like the old treetop snowboard movies when I was a kid. I got all those VHSs and stuff, and there's a movie called Clear Cut. I think it was the one that was shot in 98, 99 when we had that, the year before I moved back from Hawaii, and there was still to this day, we haven't had a winter in Whistler like that. 98 was like crazy. I was talking to Dave B, I think last year or the year before about it too. And he's like, yeah, that wasn't my favorite winter. It just snowed too much. It snowed all year long and no one got into the Alpine. But anyways, have you seen Clear Cut?
I have.
Yes. So the snowboard movie is full of some of the sickest pillow lines I've ever seen still to this day.
It's so much snow though, it's hard to even see the riders in some of the shots.
Totally. It's just it snowed in Whistler so much that year. But they rode a lot of really sick stuff that I've recently reshot in some of those Sacred Grounds episodes I was talking about and stuff. But yeah, those guys found a lot of the sickest pillow stuff in Whistler, right? And a lot of it is right off the lifts, which too many people know about now, but there's still some of the sickest pillow lines that you see guys like Bryn riding and shit is right on the hill. So,
I mean, isn't that fucking crazy? It can literally snow so much where you're like, damn, it snowed too much. That happened to us this last year. We went to Japan. The last day we were praying for this this face to get a reset. It finally came in. I think it snowed 70 to 80. I think it was 80, and it already kind of had a bit of snow.
Mm-hmm.
The
Couldn't even
shots are
move.
literally just like you're just riding down and you can kind of see someone's head in goggles and then a glove, and you're like, hey, how was it, Rusty? He's like, I don't fucking know,
just
dude.
Like bouncing to keep
I
your
didn't
speed.
see you the entire way down, and you're like, well, like, and even walking through it or falling became this thing where it's like, I've never been like so scared of just like I'm gonna drown out here. Like everywhere you're walking, you're like, we had to stay in the boot pack because if you fell over and you were alone, like,
yeah, it's scary. I mean,
it is scary.
It's
it
dangerous.
was
I've had some scary incidents in the trees, in the pillows, especially big pillows, because like one of those things breaks off and it's like, thousands of pounds of snow rolling down the mountain, and that pins you into a tree well or whatever. You can get really fucked up. But yeah, too much snow is too much snow.
Have you ever flipped into a tree well?
Yeah, for sure. I've been in a few tree wells. Luckily, never fully helpless. I've been able to get myself. I've had some experiences even on the ski resort where I've found people in tree wells and stuff.
Were they okay?
Yeah, well, yeah, one time. Yeah, I won't get into detail, but I was skiing like a line in kind of a gray zone area, and some kind of kooky skiers that didn't know where they were skiing in from the bottom in this zone, and me and a friend, Shane Carmichael Stainer, he's one of Jeeves' homies there, but yeah, we were shredding together this day, and we ski the top of this line, and it's like subalpine going into the trees, and I cut out like a good slab, ski cut it, like knew it was gonna happen. And then we're skiing down and we get onto a cliff. We're about to jump a cliff, and this guy's on the top of the fucking cliff with his like all kind of like twisted up, like what the fuck? And there's a ski dangling in the middle of the cliff, and we're like, what's going on? Like, what happened? Like, how did you guys get into here? Because they didn't ski into the line from the right spot, like that was just, they got kind of lost, and
they billy goated into the wrong zone.
And my slough or avalanche took them out.
Shit.
And I didn't know this guy's kind of shook, and it takes him a little while to tell us like he's got a friend. I'm like, whose ski is that? What's going on? And he's like, oh, my friend. I'm like, where's your friend? He's like, I don't know. And me and Shane realized pretty quick, we're like, fuck, like that snow just took this guy out. And you know, it was like a small slab slough in the trees, but a lot of snow got released, and we kind of look off the cliff below, and Shane's like, you grab the ski, I'm going down there. And I was like, okay, I'll billy goat down to the edge of the cliff. And his buddy's still clueless, like not really helping or knowing what's going on. We're like, all right, yeah, like his buddy's fucking under the snow down there. So you can kind of see where most of the snow kind of went through the trees and pushed up against a few trees. And Shane's down there just starts scrambling through all the snow and fucking like a meter under. Like, luckily it wasn't solidified avalanche debris. It was like, you know, soft powder, cold snow, and he dug up through it and fucking found the guy under there. And he was like, you know, we rushed, but his friend didn't really communicate enough with us at the start to really for us to understand what just happened, because we didn't see it. You know, we skied in from above. Anyways, fucking buddy was all right in the end. His headphones are twisted around his neck, and he's like, no backpacks or anything. We're like, got pretty pissed because I was like, we almost killed this guy. I was like kind of mad at him because I don't know why. It was just the way it was. But I was like, dude, like, don't ever come back here again. Like, make sure you, essentially it's backcountry, you know, we're riding a ski resort, but on like a, you know, 2-3 foot powder day, and in those kind of places, it's backcountry, you know. But anyways, guy was all right. We dug him out and whatever. But like, if we had have traversed out of there and skied a different way off that line and not seen them, his friend was not aware enough I think his friend would have died for sure. His friend wasn't aware enough to see that his buddy just got buried, you know. They just didn't know what they were doing, where they were. Anyways, yeah, that's a tree well story.
Was that your first time being with somebody when they got undug, or is this like a first kind of real situation with somebody under the snow?
No, well, kind of, I guess. Yeah, like I'm lucky and grateful. I've never been in a full burial situation. So some similar ones like that though. Like I've been in quite a few partial burials or just barely buried scenarios, especially in the subalpine like that. But yeah, never on the ski resort like that. That was the first and only time.
When something like that happens and you're there, you're like, oh, fuck, like these things are fucking real. They're unpredictable, and you gotta fucking respect the mountain.
Yeah, totally. Sometimes you make bad mistakes. Like even like 2 seasons ago, I was filming for like a promo video for Vocal for this new ski they were putting out, and I was out with a good friend of mine, Ian McIntosh, in Pemberton, just up. Which, I don't know, maybe we should cut that. I don't know. Fuck, I hate how many people know about that place, but
cut
or
cut
keep
that
or keep it. Everyone knows. But anyways, we're touring for a shot, and we had toured out because it was like low snow at the bottom of the tree lines. We were skiing, and we just skied the top and toured back up. And they wanted a shot of us touring together, so we're like, okay, let's walk up this. And it's this young kid Ross from Tahoe, anyways. It's on the team, and Ian and I, and I'm kind of producing the trip or the shoot. It's just, and with this other filmmaker, and all of us, it was the classic like human factor, like get work done. And we didn't really assess that like it had been dumping all day, and it was warming up throughout the day as it had been dumping. And there was some surface ore buried in certain places in the trees, and it was just this one slope in the trees where it was like slightly convex, and if you just walked like the extra effort to go a little higher and up and around, which wouldn't have been a shot, it would have been, you know, the way I normally we just normally would have taken it a bit of a different route. But because we're filming a shot, we all were like, all right, we got to stay closer together, so we're all together in the shot. And we got to walk like kind of around through the middle of this little tiny slope. But the tiny slope ended up ripping like 300 feet wide in the trees. Only like it only moved. The pocket was small, but it propagated super wide. Anyways, we're walking. I think Ian is in front and I'm in the middle. And we're touring, so you don't even get like heels in your skis or whatever. You're just all of a sudden feel this like whoomp, and it was just like doo drops, and the whole thing cracks like way ahead, and Ian starts going down, and I at first I'm like, fuck, Ian's gonna get sucked into the tree wells below, and it had just enough of a bench. It kind of slowed up and stopped, and Ian got kind of out of it there, and I started getting pulled but was able to self-arrest, and whatever, Ross behind me was fine because he was just at the start of it. It was just one of those things where it was like we never would have walked that close to each other or taken that route, but we were trying to get the shot, and even, to this day, after doing it for almost 25 years or whatever, being in the backcountry for that long, I'd still make mistakes like that sometimes.
I think that maybe because we're moving into the beginning of the year here, just adding a little emphasis on like being aware of the consequences. Because I think a lot of people who ride on the mountain, who ride in the backcountry, there is a little bit of the like out of sight, out of mind. Like people are just like, oh, it hasn't happened to me yet, and I've been riding in Kybers forever, and it's like, and I do it alone or what or whatever. Like there is an element of risk that's always going to be there when riding in the mountains, and things do happen. And I mean, I've been out there for a long time, and I've definitely seen my fair share of like severe injuries. And I know that you lost your dad out there. You've lost close friends of the ski community over the years. And a lot of those injuries, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them are easily avoidable. And like, just I'm putting an emphasis on just like, dial in your shit a little bit this year, because when shit like that happens, it goes beyond just affecting you,
Yeah. And the human factor is real. Seeing other people doing stuff and gaining confidence through that, or pushing too much because there's, a camera, whatever. It's easy. It sounds cheesy and stupid, but it's true. There's a large human factor there. So I think people need to make decisions for themselves. That's one thing I've seen a lot over the years, especially with people getting into the mountains, even if they've snowboarded or skied their whole life and whatever, they're X Games slope style guys or whatever, is a lot of people go out in the mountains, say in Alaska, for their first heli trip, or they do stuff like that, and they don't do what, like, say Bryn does, where they live out there. They're out there every day in the backcountry, and you get into situations where you lean on the guide, or you it's really important as a group to have collective, and even that's what, if you're on your own or your group's smaller, it's really important to have a super solid crew, because everything has to align, and I don't like to rely on one person for anything. I think everyone out there creates a stronger group decision if you all kind of are aware of things. And just being able to read the mountain is really important. I think respecting that it can change in an instant. It's always, the mountain's always boss, and you gotta wait for her to open her gates, and some days she doesn't want to open them.
Yeah, there's definitely an expert halo that people put on with anybody who's older, who's been in the mountains longer than you. They're like, that guy's got it figured out. Dave's been riding here for years. Dave's got it all dialed.
Yeah, it must be fine. They were here. It's
we see tracks on this face.
Yeah.
There's lots of misleading.
Or even even in Alaska, and your guide says it's okay. It's like, you make your own decision. That's where I really respect guys like Tom Burt and my dad, and like these, OGs in that sense, is that they weren't going up there getting guided. They were paying the guy drunk at the bar a couple $100 to drop him out there, and they had to survive. You know what I mean? There was no sat phones or cell phones, or a lot less safety equipment. It was you had to learn the mountains. So I think it's really important for people, if they aspire to greatness in the big mountains, to put the time in, and not just wait till you get invited on the heli trip to Alaska to finally ski those lines. Like, go hike off Blackcomb. There's Alaska right here. Go up to whatever, Chocolate Bowl or Rutherford, and maybe don't build the mother jump or whatever. Go like far back and ride some spines, and get comfortable in that terrain. So then when you do go on like your heli film shoot, you're like, you do it all the time. You're going to have more ability to make good decisions.
Because it happens quick too. It's just like from a good decision, or like you get that gut feeling. Like so many times I'll be like, if you're shuttling somebody up to the top to ride like a line, and you're side hilling with your sled to go pick them up, and you get like that feeling, like you're like, I'm going to actually turn my sled around really quick here and take this other route that, like, I'm not on top of this. Like, it's a mellow convexity, but I kind of know that what's under me is a little bit fucking rogue.
Yeah.
And, like, listening to that, I feel like is so important. We already kind of touched on that, but, like, fuck, I feel that. Because there's multiple times in the mountains where I'll just stop and I'll be like, ooh, something's telling me, like, it doesn't want me to be here. Like,
and
something.
especially on snowmobiles, it's really important to stop. That's where you see, like, a lot of sled neck errors, and it happens to everyone. If you're rooping around sleds all day, you're full throttle ripping around. There's not a lot of turn the engine off sometimes and just, like, maybe assess things a bit more. Where walking, you get the chance to ski tour and put your hands in the snow, feel it a bit longer. Sledding or helis or whatever, all of a sudden you're just there, you know? So you get less time to digest it. So it's important to, I think, stop, land with the heli, walk around outside and look at the lines from the ground. Or, you know, same with the sled. It's just anytime things move quick. That's where I'm pretty grateful for the early years I had just ski touring in the backcountry off the mountain here and stuff like that, because it kind of taught me a lot, I think.
Right on. On that note, I feel like I'll transition here into 10 questions. But before I do so, we got a Scandinavian bath pass for you.
Dope.
Thanks for coming on the show. Have you been before?
The Scandinavian, the spa there.
Yeah, the spa there.
Yeah.
Do you like the waterfall?
I like it. Has it been renovated in a while? I haven't been there in a while.
Oh yeah, it's got a fresh.
stuff?
Yeah, it was closed for a bit. Got a fresh polish up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the whole place is looking minty. I went there the other day. Absolutely
Sick.
Amazing. And I built the waterfall there. If everybody likes the waterfall, it's no big deal.
Nice.
Shout outs to MT Studios in Pemberton. Mike Tyler. If you need some landscaping done, he's the GOAT.
Word. Yeah, no, I'm hyped. I love the Scando spa.
Yeah, I know. What's your favorite one?
Well, usually start with the steam room.
Oh, the eucalyptus steam room.
Steam room.
That one's good.
Everything goes to a cold plunge, right? So
yeah, totally.
Cold plunge, steam, and then down to whatever, chill, tub session, kind of whatever sessions, and then I always end it with the dry sauna.
Right on. Well, if you want to go tonight, you can. Maybe before I get to these 10 questions, just because we've touched on this a bit, and everybody who's listening to this will at one point have to face some unfortunate loss in their life, and you having lost your dad at a very young age and having lost some very close friends in the ski community, do you have any advice with just dealing with grief?
Yeah, I mean, fuck, there's like nothing ever fixes it, right? It's losing someone's the hardest thing I think ever in life. But all you can do is keep moving on. I mean, that's all you can do is keep doing what you love. And yeah, for me, having purpose and passions in life and sharing that with people. And I think if anything, loss, what it'll do to you is make you appreciate what you have, right? So yeah, just being grateful for the friends you do have around you and the family you do have around you, and cherishing all the moments you get with them. And you know, I don't know, I always said I like to live every day like it was my last, but do it in a manner of planning like I'll be here forever, you know?
Well said. Well said. There's definitely something that when you lose somebody, you really like when that happens, you're like, oh fuck, it wasn't forever. Like you feel like it's going to be like, you know, you see somebody in the sled lot and you give them a fucking high five and you're like, yeah, dude, like 6 seasons, see you next year.
Yeah.
But knowing that's not a guarantee, so to put like when you say goodbye, like fucking, you know,
yeah, totally.
I don't know, it's a weird feeling, especially in snowboarding, because every time you see somebody, might be your last. Not even talking about them passing away, but like a lot of people come in as a photographer or a filmer or a snowboarder, and they come in from Europe, and then you just never see them again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, fuck, man, these characters that show up in our sports are just they're amazing. and to not take that for granted and to slow down and enjoy that time. You know, that's why I love the end of the day in the sled parking lot. It's my favorite. It's like a nice wind down. You get to, like, you're not filming anymore. Everyone's down safe. You're by the trucks, couple beers, and you're like, this is the fucking, like, what we do. Like, how lucky are we? And that you are all there. Like,
Totally.
no one's gone at that moment.
Yeah, like you're only good if you made it home at the end of the day. So that's always number one, is getting back and doing it safely. So I think there's a lot to be said in that too, you know. It's like, even like the rap stuff we were talking about before the podcast or whatever, it's like Tupac, Biggie, or Nas. It's like Tupac and Biggie, who's the greatest or whatever. But it's like, I don't know, maybe Nas is the greatest. He's alive, right? So it's like, same with skiing and snowboarding. There's a lot of guys that, you know, you learn from the mistakes other people make as well. So I think learning the right times to make those decisions and taking the time to learn it properly goes a long way. So I think, yeah, if you want to have longevity, it's a long time. So yeah, small steps.
When you have lost somebody in the ski community, did it make you like reevaluate your approach to skiing?
For sure. I think many times losing friends and whatever to the mountains has made me rethink how I approach it, or if it's what you want to do, or, you know, it's like, and even just the other day, like, I was like, you know, I don't know, like, I don't even know him that well, but Mike Gardner, he was I think he's an Arc'teryx ambassador, but he's a climber, skateboarder, skier, kind of a dope ass dude from Jackson Hole, and he just died in a climbing accident in I think it was in the Himalayas. But just like, fuck, dude, yeah, it sucks. And you know, it happens to the best of them. So there's you know, I looked up to like Mark Twight a lot. Mark Twight's a writer and a climber, and some of his writing seemed kind of pessimistic and negative in some ways, because a lot of he quit, he stopped, but he didn't die, and a lot of his friends died, you know. And it became that he couldn't accept anymore the chances, you know, the uncontrollable hazards. Because you can do so much to be prepared for when shit happens and study the snow and the mountains and know like when it's a good time to go. But there's, you know, like sometimes it just happens, you know. And so, yeah, I mean, just spending a lot of time out there, you're going to see it happen. Bad shit's going to happen eventually. That's what's crazy about the mountains, is they give us so much. They give us everything, people like me and you, but they can take it. It can take it all away in an instant. So I don't know, being aware of that, I think, is what kind of would change an approach in some ways, and maybe, you know, yeah, help you, you know, pull back. 'Cause it's sad to see when people don't make it that far, you know, and you expect them to. So, but I don't know, man. It's like one of the hardest questions in life is like loss. It's just a thing that no one ever knows. Life works like mystically, you know. Things happen for reasons we don't know why, and that's how I look at it.
When you lose somebody, you realize just how valuable that connection was. And in a way, it's like that's what makes you feel human. Like the fact that you can feel lost that great from somebody. Like when I've lost the most important people to me, it's only when they're gone I realize the impact they actually had. And it's unfortunate that that's what it takes, like more often than not, is for them to be gone, for me to finally realize, like, holy fuck, that person was so important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you often don't articulate that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we do more and we do a better job in today's society, rather than like even when you grew up, which was like, go big, go home, excuse my language, but like, don't be a pussy, like suck it up. And now it's a little bit more like, fuck, dude, like you've been having a hard time, like we can talk about this, you know? Like
totally.
I'm imagining when you had experienced some of your first losses. I remember when Cal came home with JP's loss, and it was like, dude, he took like Sean and Cal were rocked, and I was like,
Yeah.
and that was like a long time ago when you're like early 20s, like 19, and dealing with that. Like, I don't know if a lot of young men in action sports were equipped with the tools to be able to do so in a healthy way.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's tough. And sometimes it just hits you so hard and you don't expect it, you know. JP was one of the really hard ones because, I don't know, he was the figure that everyone always, and me especially, I just always thought he was going to be around. You know what I mean? He's the kind of guy that's like, you know, he should be in the ski industry and around forever. He is like a face of what we do, you know? It's like, how could he be gone? He just left so quick all of a sudden. So yeah, fuck, I don't know, man. There's no rhyme or reason why things happen, but like, there's something to be learned, as shitty as it is to say, from whenever that shit happens. So, you know, whenever there's an accident in the backcountry, I'm interested to hear what happened, you know, how it happened, and hopefully you can get away with enough of those, like, you know, close calls in your life to learn from them, or you can learn from other people's close calls, or you can learn from other people's losses, you know, and so there's something that comes out of everything, you know. You got to take the positive out of the negative, I think.
What's really special about your story in particular is the fact that you never fell victim to substance or abuse in any way. Like, I've known you for such a long time. For sure, you smoke some weed, whatever. But I'm talking about like booze and drugs and stuff like that. Like, you've always had like this like determined level head on you, and growing up around so many people in my life that have addiction issues, I've always like, and hearing your story more, it's just like, it's so inspiring that you didn't lean on those things for a crutch. And it seems to me like you found what you were looking for in nature, and you've pushed more into that, and you've made that more of your life.
Which, yeah, isn't always healthy, but it's better than drugs for sure. I mean, I didn't want drugs. I mean, I'd done some drugs and alcohol and from a young age, but I didn't get into drugs because they were around me. I saw what they did to me firsthand in the household I grew up in. You know, there was, you know, drug abuse in my household. So I knew that I didn't want to be that. You know, I knew that was ruining something, and I had these opportunities we spoke of with skiing and whatnot at a young age, and that became my drug and my outlet. And because I have a pretty addictive personality, that's just who I am. Like, I'm obsessive and addictive. So I've gotten addicted to different things, like we're talking, like, you know, fly fishing and whatever, climbing, and these things that at certain times have really hooked me. But and whatever, I've got my like things, like, you know, there's some nicotine and weed or whatever, but like, I've just chose to use other things. But it's not always healthy, because then you overdo it, you know, you get so obsessed with one thing that it can burn you out. So I don't know, that's, I think, why I've just moved on to getting motivation from different aspects of skiing over the years. Is because I do have an addictive personality, but I've managed to use, you know, my activities and outdoors as my outlet instead of a drug. You know, my drug of choice has been, you know, skateboarding and whatever. Sometimes it's fucking taking it too serious, you know, like I would not have gotten where I am today if it wasn't for that. If I didn't take skiing so serious and put all the pressure on myself, everything I do in life, I want to do, if I'm going to put effort into it, I want to put my all into it. So yeah, I don't know, just who I am. I wouldn't say I fully escaped addiction. I think my addiction is not, as negative as it could be. I've chose things that, maybe beat myself up a bit too much over the years, but it's, yeah, it is what it is. It's good addictions.
It's also like, you're probably like, if you're so addicted, like that's your personality type, once you get into something, you hyper focus on it as well. So you pick up on everything that you could do better with everything, which isn't good when you're like trying to be good at something, because then you're a perfectionist at it. And there's certain things in your life that you won't be equipped with all the tools to be a perfection at it, but you want to be.
Yeah.
And if you're analyzing that all the time, you might beat yourself down to like want to be better at all aspects of life. But to be good at every aspect of life, like from being a good brother to being a good partner to being a good friend to being a good skier to being a good teammate, to complete the circle of life is it's a never-ending journey. You can't be perfect at it all. But if you're like yourself, who, if you're going to dive into something, you want to be the best at it, you're not always equipped with the tools to be the best at it.
True. Yeah, no. It's just going to take away from other things. You know, like I could have been a better friend or person in a lot of ways in my life if I didn't put everything into one thing. You know what I mean? You sacrifice relationships and friendships by, you know, putting so much on one thing. But I think that's just who I am, and it's what it is. I think it's not the worst thing. It's just that as I've gotten older, I've learned, I think, more. It's still hard to walk away from things, because sometimes, you know, whatever it is, if you're trying a trick or you're doing something, sometimes it's just better to like walk away. But when you care so much about it, it's hard, you know?
Fuck yeah.
So I think going forward, as I get older, I learn more about the time and the place for it all, and just always finding new inspiration, and staying addicted, but not getting stagnant, you know, because then I'd probably rather do drugs than ride powder if it gets too boring. Got to keep it fresh.
Fuck no. Never.
No, exactly. But as long as every day you go out there with the goal, and then that's the addiction for me. It's like every day I go ski, I'm going to have something I want to work on, or I'm going to like, you know, have a plan for the day, and, you know, nothing else is going to get in the way of that, because that's what's really important to me. So that's just how it is. You know, you can't be good at everything. You got to pick your poisons.
Yeah, definitely. As somebody that's known you for a long time, just don't fall victim to being like negative to yourself, because I mean, humans, I do often bring this up because I am definitely a victim of bullying myself harder than anybody else has ever bullied anybody. But that, I don't think that that's a unique characteristic to myself. I feel like that's ingrained in human nature to drive you and keep you moving forward. And it's unfortunate because it's not the best feeling, but it also helps you evolve, become a better person. If you're analyzing yourself, I mean, you can definitely overdo it, but it's definitely nice to see yourself like move forward in life rather than staying in your comfort zone, which you don't do. Like, you definitely are somebody who is constantly willing to be like, hey, I'm interested in fly fishing. I don't really know how to do it, but I'm going to try it. And when I fucking try it, I'm going to put a lot into it.
Yeah.
Which, like, yeah, for sure, you can beat yourself to a pulp because you're a bad fly fisherman and be like, fuck, Kye, you could be better at this. Why aren't you fucking better? Or you could be the person who sits at home being like, God, I wish I would just try and fly fish. And you pick your poison, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And then you work really hard at something and you get better. You're always going to be hard on yourself. But then when you put that pressure on yourself and make it important to you, you get to a point where you'll have moments, especially where you're like, I know what I'm doing right now. I'm doing this good. I'm confident in what I'm doing. And that's when greatness happens, you know? So there's a balance. You got to be, I think, militant, hard on yourself, but you also got to be confident and being like, yeah, fuck, I deserve to get this, what I'm getting. I could get more, you know, or whatever. And you got to always be looking to the future, I think. If you know, doing kind of thing I'm doing, for me, I got to always look to the future, and I always got to have goals, but I got to, you know, also know what I'm doing is the right thing.
And what you're doing clearly is the right thing. Look where you are, healthy. I mean, that's a big thing right there. The fact that I think humans, just because we were talking about passing away there, like, humans often overlook just how grateful They should be to be able to see, taste, smell, be sitting here, to be present in this moment. Because there's people in a hospital that like are still here, but they've gotten some of that torn away from them. Like, fuck, life is a beautiful gift that we often take for granted.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I got to do things that make me feel alive all the time. And being around moving water and surfing and fishing, fly fishing and skiing in the backcountry and snowboarding and all these things, that is me. That's my everything, you know. That means my life to me. So I think without that stuff, it would be pretty boring.
Well, you can get bored, but this seems like something like a thing that you need to work on. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like what I've realized about myself, and I learned it on the island when I was there during COVID, because I removed myself from my group of like my community of whistlers. I lived here for, I don't know, a long time now, almost 20 years. And there's my friends, my family and stuff like that. And then I moved to the island and I didn't know anybody. So I'm spending time alone by myself and my thoughts. And in that time, I got to like work on myself enough that I was like, I got to ask myself a lot of cool questions. Like, okay, you either reach for the highs of life, like through getting a clip and getting that adrenaline, or drugs, alcohol, like something, you know what I mean? Those are the high, sex, like something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the pendulum swing, which brings you down to the low lows, and like maybe not even, maybe you're just a bully to yourself and you're beating yourself up. Where we all need to hover is like the mundane middle of just like a half decent cup of coffee, you know? It's
Totally.
not great. It's not even perfect. It's just like, and if you can just be happy in the middle, there's no pendulum swing, and it's just, your life is just consistent, and you can constantly digest that consistently. That, yeah, it's just like, it's easy for the human psyche to digest consistency over like the highs of life, busy, like, you know, as soon as you start reaching for those highs, there's low lows that go with it.
For sure.
That's why I love that like middle ground.
I just find it a lot easier. Like my cheat code to finding that middle ground is like the environment, the outdoors, you know.
That's a great cheat code. It's probably it's the one that's built in, like, it's
ingrained in our nature,
programmed into the fucking planet by whatever
Totally.
computer programmer designed this fucking planet was like, hey, everybody who's all stressed out in the village, go for a walk in those awesome areas that I made.
That's why, like, that's why.
Look around the corner of the river. It's dope.
Exactly. And that's why I know I can't be, like, good with technology. It's just not me. I've tried over the years, you know. It's like,
Can anybody?
Yeah, I can't, like, I mean, some people.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. But, like, Instagram and social media and all this stuff, it's like, I know that I have to, like, you know, be in those, like, grounding places, you know, whether it's the forest, you know, and skiing deep powders, you know, pow surfing or something, or just when you paddle out past the break and you sit there, just being in the ocean to start with, you know, it's I don't know, for me it just brings me back to square one. Like I love it. I love it now, like where I've been, you know, I was on the island this summer surfing a bit and fishing and doing my thing there, and then going up north and spending my falls on Steelhead rivers fishing. And then I come back here and it's winter, coming into winter, you know, and it's like, I've like, if I didn't have those other like resets or like bring me back to square one, then it feels like a refresher for me. So I need to spend that time in the outdoors all the time. I'm just an addict to it too. So if I don't have it, I kind of go crazy, but yeah.
I like that like full circle moment there. And isn't it funny that so many people who are listening to this right now are like, no, man, you're living the dream. You have the perfect life. But what I think humans need to wrap around their fucking heads is that doesn't exist. It's like, why are the fucking Hollywood people who are the best looking with the most money, who have access to everything, the most miserable? Like,
totally.
It's just like that happiness, which is cheesy to say, just doesn't come from anywhere but within, and you need to be pretty happy with just things that aren't so great, like a fucking shitty bus ride when it's raining. Like, if you can't just enjoy just existing in like life's.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm hooked on those like those kind of roughing it camp trips, you know, or whatever. I sleep in the cold, sleep in the cold,
it's
or
the fucking
you
best.
know, do this and that. It's not perfect, but you're doing it for something you're really passionate about and you care about. It's the same thing as like whatever you do to make, you know, your passion happen. You know, you work your 9 to 5 so you can do something else. You don't work to work, you work to live. And yeah, whatever your living is, you know, like I think it's you make it happen. If that's what you want, you'll make the sacrifices to make it happen. It's never just easy, but yeah, if it's to be outside and enjoying these things we do, it's like, I don't know, there's nowhere else I'd rather be.
The highs in life when you're in nature don't necessarily, unless there's avalanches and stuff, but if you just go into nature where you're not exposing yourself to risks, like going to a lake or walking down a river, fly fishing, very low risks.
Mm-hmm.
There's no low lows that come with that. It's just like the high that you're going to feel if the sun comes from behind the cloud and then you catch a fish. You're like, it's such a good, gratifying feeling of human existence.
Yeah.
And then there is no pendulum swing. Like nature is an organic high with no low. It's just a bit of a high.
I think the cool thing about it is, for me, sometimes there is pendulum swings. There's the high
trip and slip on a rock and smack your shin. And then
yeah,
you're like,
fuck. You're crossing some tail out in the river that's really deep and it's a big rapid below you. You're like, don't want to go down it, or you have to run something in the jet boat that's like scary, you know, and you got to go up or go down a rapid and you got to get back up it or whatever. But like, and then there's the low lows of, say you lose a couple fish in a row or you fucked up and you're whatever, but then you finally land a fish. It's like, those are all the highs and lows, but throughout the whole day, regardless of the outcome or regardless of what happens, it's the fact that you're there, you know, like every day at the end of the day, you're like, that was worth being out there. I feel better now, you know?
Yeah, because fishing comes with being present. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
There's a level of like, when you're so hyper focused on like catching a fish and you're in tune with what's going on with like the water moving in a certain way and maybe the fish are accumulating over in this corner or whatever, and you're so in tune with like your surroundings, it's like you're slowing down, which is
that's the cheat code. That's like my meditation cheat code, is like using those times to be present, because you're forced to be present. It's like rock climbing or skiing a steep line. Like there is nothing else in your mind except for that while you're doing it, because you have to be focused on that. And it becomes this meditation thing. And at the end of the day, like you didn't need to do that to be, but it's a reason that brings you out there, and it attaches you more to the present and to the environment around you, because you have to be. And it's the same with fishing too. You got to be focused on what you're doing to make sure you're doing it properly and catching the fish. So yeah, I don't know. Being present is probably the hardest thing in life. I'm no pro. I'm still learning lots, but for me, those are the best ways to do it.
I don't think there's a therapist on planet Earth from any medical background that would be like, yeah, spending time in nature is a bad call. It's like always a good call. Maybe if you're just doing it alone, every once in a while you could probably incorporate somebody else if it's consistently alone, because then you're like secluding yourself. But like for the most part, like if you have to ask yourself if you're having a bad time in life and you constantly lie to yourself, you're only fooling yourself. You know what I mean? Like you should be honest with yourself every once in a while. Like just do a check-in and just be like, am I pretending to have a good time on Earth, or am I having a good time? And if you're not having a fucking good time and you already know you're not having a good time, be like, okay, well, what could I do to have a better time? For example, 2 months ago, I was starting to experience a variety of extreme headaches, migraines, and I went to the doctor and I was like, yo, I got some fucking headaches that are popping off. We went through my diet, my exercise, my just life. And it was so funny when I found out the things when I was looking in the mirror. I already knew that I was fucking doing wrong, that I was like, oh, those 4 things that I'm doing, I could probably not do, and they would probably like limit my headaches. So I was like, okay, like these are some patterns in my life that I need to change. It's 2 months later, my pattern shifted a bit. I haven't had any fucking headaches.
That's
it's
sick.
like,
Good for you.
I mean, I'm sure they'll come back because headaches do as they do, and every once in a while they're going to be out of my control. But like, there is an element of control that you can have if you're just being honest with the life that you're living.
Totally. Yeah. And there, I think there's nothing to stop you from change. Like that's got to be open to change and trying new things, I think, to stay happy a lot of times for me anyways. So
big time. Be open to change. That's the thing. On both sides. I mean, yeah. And then just fucking be a good person. That was a fucking nice little rant we went on there. A little deeper at the end there. I like that.
The end went all ranty.
Right? Just fucking, that was good. I was like, damn, dude.
Yeah. Totally.
I forgot we were recording a podcast, and I was just
it's just nice to talk and hang. It's cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. 10 questions presented by Skull Candy. If you need a pair of headphones, you can grab a pair over there. Some dimes.
Sick. Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, big shout outs to Skull Candy for supporting the show, to all of our sponsors for supporting the show. TheSourceboards.com. They ship worldwide. If you need snowboard gear, go to their website, check them out. They got all the stuff, all the goods you need. They got Vans boots. They're also sponsors of the show. Ashbury. They actually got Ashbury goggles. We got all of our sponsors shit at The Source. Go check them out. All right. Best style currently and back in the day.
We're talking about skiing right now or anything.
Dude, you have enough credibility in both worlds that you could throw out whatever you want. Maybe a couple skiers, a skateboarder, a snowboarder, whatever you want to do.
Oh, man. Like, I mean, style is there's so many, but like, I mean, skateboarding right now, whatever I think comes to mind, like Tom Penny. Tom Penny's one. Let's see, what for ski style, OGs, Mikhail Deschanel, it's a style legend. Eric Pollard, style man. I mean, it's so many people with good style, but yeah, like those guys for sure. Back in the day, I always loved like watching guys like my dad style, or one I'll shout out for sick ski style OGs is Andrew Shepard, OG sick style.
I love that you gave your old man the shout outs too. I watched some of the old films today, dude. It's so fucking sick, dude. Like, I get where Sean later in his year, do you remember when Sean kind of like quit skiing and then he started snowboarding, then he came back skiing a bit, and it was a bit more like fast-paced mountain ripping,
trying to be kind of old school style.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I really like. I was like, fuck, this
I
is
incorporate
dope.
that in my style nowadays. I think as I've gotten older, I get inspiration from all eras. And those old school era was so sick. And the same was the snowboarding. Sometimes you watch it like, oh, it's over the top, but it's like sick.
Yeah, totally. Like you were saying, a Tom Burt part, like
triple kick method.
Yeah,
like
totally.
just like. Yeah. But no, either way, like in snowboarding for me, like my biggest inspiration was always Craig Kelly. As a style god and just as a person.
Did your dad know Craig at all?
Yeah, I don't know how much they spent time together, but they definitely knew each other for sure. Yeah, they spent some time together.
Probably in Alaska or some shit, hanging out.
Yeah,
Hanging out in a hangar.
Maybe Island Lake Lodge even. I don't know. Yeah, around. I mean, like Mark Gallup, he shot a lot with my dad. He also shot a lot with Craig. I don't know if they ever shot together or not, but yeah. There's a lot of small world, a lot of crossovers in those years. But yeah, Craig's always been like style god to me. Modern style guy was, obviously Mueller. So we always watched his shit. But yeah, there's a few there.
All right, career highlight.
Oh man, I don't know. Career highlight. I think when I was like 18, 19, you know what, actually, I don't know, let's say like when I was like 19, I kind of realized I was like good finally, you know what I mean? I was like, okay, I can keep up with all the big dogs out there. And I think it was 2009, I won the Red Bull Cold Rush. It was the first one at Retallick, the only one I competed in at Retallick, but I was 19, it was 2009, and the competition didn't mean much to me besides the fact that it was the sickest crew of skiers all together in like one of my favorite places, Metallic, which is a sick lodge in the interior near Nelson. And I won the event. It was like a, backcountry. There was a pillow section, a kind of a spine line section sort of, and then backcountry booters. They built some snowcats, and it was really fucking sick, fun time. And I got to stand on the podium. I remember when I won it, and I was next to JP Eclair and Sage Catabriga, who were like, two of my like kind of idols, That I remember at that moment, I realized I was like, oh fuck, I'm like as good as these guys and I could be better. Like, holy shit. Like, this is like, that was a turning point in my career for sure.
Mark Sollers was invited to the first Ultra Natural alongside like Nicholas Mueller, Gigi, DCP. Everybody was there. John Jay, Eric Jackson, Travis Rice. And Mark, that was Mark's like second year really being like kind of like in that, but he had imposter syndrome. And It was until he was like at that event, he was like, wait, like I'm in the club, not because I slipped through the cracks. Like,
yeah,
I'm here for a reason. Like,
totally.
Fuck, like I'm here. Like,
yeah. So I think that was like, that was a big turning point, I guess. But so many highlights over the years, different lines and riding with different people. But yeah, that was probably the early good one.
One trend or phase you wish would come back?
Oh, one trend or phase I wish would come back. Well, frick, man. The one thing I really don't like right now in skiing, and I think you see in snowboarding too, is the short jackets. What's up with the short jackets?
What, Marty Vachon, dude?
It's cool right now. I know you probably have a short jacket.
No, I don't have a short jacket. I'm running a medium.
Medium's cool, but I don't get the short jackets.
But the long jacket that I used to wear, like when I was on my
that was
DC,
over the top.
Like it was just after the tall T phase, and it was like then I was wearing the tall jackets, and skiers wore like the tallest. Because Torstein influenced a whole generation to have like the ultra tall top. I feel like.
Yeah. I like to have it so like when I sit on the chairlift, though, my jacket kind of covers my ass a little bit.
Yeah.
Not like a ton, but I know I just don't like the style, especially with skiers, like short skis and short jackets and no poles. No, thank you. Not into that.
Let's face it, you're definitely a function over fashion guy. You're a real mountain dude. Like we were saying before, like people aren't sponsoring you to be like an influencer. Like you are a person who lives in the mountain and you want your gear to work at the highest level because
I still don't look like a kook out there. I still don't want to have like kooky steez, but I like functional steez, if that makes sense.
Oh, I love that. I'm functional steez all day.
Yeah, well, because I guess the older you get, we all kind of
because we're in the mountains.
Yeah, you need to be
and like we were going over avalanches and how people pass. Like I don't want to look like, man, that guy looks so cool, but like if shit hits the fan, he's gonna freeze to death. Like no thanks. Like
at some point in my career, that
short jacket on a windy day crossing a glacier. Like okay,
it doesn't look cool anymore.
I'm down with the short jackets, but it's not functional in the mountains if it's too short. But I know what you mean.
I think in skiing too, it just, I don't know, tall guys, short jackets just looks whack. But
not your thing. Spoken like a true old head. I love it. All right, who's the most underrated?
Oh, well, I mean, Bryn, for sure. Bryn Alexander. I don't know, as like a local ski hill shredder, I would say Jake Carney. He's a pretty sick, underrated, like local hill shredder. But
I was gonna say Durs.
Yeah, I know him too. Yeah, no, but there's so many nowadays. There's
I know
so many, but yeah, I'll see those guys.
What keeps you up at night?
Man, finding sick, like thinking about sick. I don't know. What keeps me up at night? Exploring sick runs with steelhead in them, or permit bonefish flats in the tropics, or AK style spine lines, and yeah, I mean, that stuff really keeps me up at night. I still dream about, like all that. If I go up to Alaska this spring, it's like what keeps me up at night is thinking through potential possibilities on the mountains that, yeah, I just dream about it.
I love that. Your dream spot for your dream home, where you want to be posted up.
Well,
other than you already lived the dream, but I'm just saying a dream above that one.
Well, I mean, my dream, I've lived most of the last 6 months out of a truck camper, which isn't my dream, but that's what I do to be able to like afford to travel and live on the road and do the things I do, surf and fish these places and whatnot. But I would really love to have a place. My dream would be to have, a somewhere small place in the tropics, close to really good, saltwater fly fishing flats that also has good surfing waves nearby. Haven't quite found the perfect place yet, but
it exists.
That's my dream. Good surf and good flats fishing in the same spot with just a modest little cabin or something, and then having whatever, my place in Pemberton and a place in northern BC. If I had those three things, be set.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. One area of your life you would like to work on?
Right now, one area of my life I'd like to work on is definitely, kind of like a lot of what we were just talking about, is being present. The more I can, learn to be present, that's kind of my main goal in life. I've, over the years, constantly learning and growing, but just being the most present I can possibly be. I still, get lost in thought and stuff too often.
I feel like the beginning of the conversation was fast paced for me. Like we were talking about, there was a moment there where we got like a nice 20-minute banter back and forth where I feel like time kind of slowed down and I was like really listening to what you were saying. Like I was listening the whole time, but there was like an ultra focus there that was
no, I agree. Yeah,
enjoyable there. It was
those moments are special.
Exactly. One thing you wish people focused on more in skiing, like an area of skiing that could use some improvement.
Yeah,
in the industry.
Man, there's a lot. Snowboarding has done a really good job in recent years of paying homage to the history, Skiing has kind of lacked that, I think, in recent years. So I think just, it's crazy. There's so many legendary figures I grew up looking at that, think, it's really important to keep the history close, There's so many kids nowadays growing up in the sport of skiing that don't know anything about anything from where it came from and all that. So I think just the ski industry should be, paying a little more homage to the history, keeping the legends of the sport involved longer, I think. Other thing I would say is maybe just, we're seeing natural selection skiing this year and stuff like that, but I think there should be, I'd like to see a little more emphasis on not the kind of huck mentality and more the, technicality.
I like that. One thing that's important, I think, right now is to realize that pros back in the day had an expiration date because there was no way to market them other than to put them in a magazine and let people know that they're the next best thing. With nowadays, with social media and YouTube and so many different platforms, there's a way to share the story of those riders who built your brand in a tasteful way that will resonate with not only the audience from in which they grew up around, someone who the same age as me, like a Mikey Rentz, but there's a way to market them and
recycle it.
Yeah, and share their story and their history with the younger age through whatever creative video you feel reflects your brand. And I feel like back in the day, it was only about being the best, go big, go home, be the best, most progressive.
Yeah.
Now I look at, and just because we kept bringing him up throughout this podcast, I'll use him as a reference point again. You have somebody like Mikey who has a kid. He's been on Burton for 27, 28 years. Now that he has a kid and Burton makes kid boards, who is better to market that product than Mikey to the world of snowboarding? And to utilize that and to share that story with, like, to me, that's a no-brainer. You have people my age and older that looked up to Mikey. You have people younger that looked up to Mikey. And now there's a way to, like, keep that whole cycle going. That wasn't a great way to market people back in the day, but I feel like there's real value now. And the vast majority of people spending money from 28 to 45 probably in the ski and snowboard industry are the main audience. Like a 34-year-old is probably like the right in the middle, smack the dab, going to a shop, paying full pop for a product.
Yeah.
And is like, I want this product and I want it to work and I want it to perform and I'm willing to pay X amount of dollars for it. And there's there's a market there.
For sure. Even the younger crowd, they wouldn't have what they have today without guys like Mikey paving the way. So there's got to be some respect there. It continues on.
It kind of goes beyond respect, though. It's like they actually sell product.
Yeah.
Like there's a way to actually market them so they actually, like, they're not just like, oh, we're keeping this old guy on the team because, like, he used to be really sick. It's like, no, there's a way to market that person who used to be really fucking sick, who still is really sick, because the way he snowboards is going to resonate more with that audience. Like, are you going to get more inspired to watch someone like you snowboard? How old are you?
34.
So you're 34. If you're a 34-year-old skier who likes to ride big mountain, but you've never turned pro, but you're good, are you going to get more inspired by watching a 34-year-old who is the same age as you, same kind of body structure, who's out there pushing themselves like you?
Yeah.
Or you can get more inspired by watching an 18-year-old kid with, like, this weird fucking TikTok image. Like, it's not going to speak to you at all.
I think a good example is, like, Kelly Slater or whatever. He just retired, I think, officially, but whatever. He'll still be in some contests we'll watch in the next couple of years, but I've watched him for the last 20 years and watched the ASP, WSL, and all that stuff for a long time, and you always want him to win, you know? It's like, because he's the, you know, just sick seeing the old guy win. And I'll be honest, like, watching Travis, like, Ricky, like, do his thing is so inspiring, being that, I don't know, how old is he now? He's got to be 40.
Yeah, he's got to be 40 or coming up on that.
He'll be 39 for sure. He's got to be.
He's 39 plus. He's either 39 or.
It's probably the same age as Tanner. I think 39, 40.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, just to see guys that are still getting better and have been still getting better for that long is pretty cool, you know?
Yeah, and there's 1,000 different ways to, like, polish your craft. You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be in Travis hitting a ice gap now. Like, he's done that. Like, there's a way, like, he continues to evolve his snowboarding in a way that still excites people to pick up a snowboard.
Well, and he's just doing things that's, you know, for the sport is exciting, you know? And then it goes, like, to me, that's exciting. But I say that in a way of, like, we watch guys like T. Rice and Kelly Slater because it's more interesting to watch them than it is the young guy, because you're so invested in them because of what they've invested into the sport. But it goes the same for someone in you know, whatever, in surfing. It's guys like that are like Kelly Slater, like whatever Rob Machado say, or something like that is totally opposite. He's been out of it, but they've kept surfing and skateboarding does a way better job of it than skiing and snowboarding.
Way better
is what I'm getting at, and I think we could learn a thing or two from them.
Yeah, and it's important to keep those people around for, like, so many reasons. Yeah. We talk about that a lot on the podcast, especially as I get older and I realize the value that I might have not had when I was younger. Like, the mentorship that Rusty has provided someone like Sean Miskimen in this town is, like, insane. Like, the mentorship that Mark Sollers and Mikey gave to Mikey Cicerelli is insane, or Mickle has given to Ben Ferguson, or whatever, you know what I mean? And Terrier to, like, the entire Burton crew until he's since moved on. It's like these people are, like, invaluable, and you do not want to lose them. And then once you lose them, once we fully derail from the value that the people who've shaped our industries, like, we're fucked. We're fucked once we just don't value the people who have shaped the culture, our history, our roots. And like, as soon as we just go to our lineage and we go, fuck you, we're just another TikTok stupid fucking brand, and it's just
then
over.
I don't have a job anymore.
Yeah, you don't have a job, and we also like, skiing is just this shell of a fucking thing.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's where
Why is skiing so cool? Why is snowboarding so cool? Because of its history.
Yeah, and the core history, it's got to be kept alive. And I think, like, we had a pretty good chat earlier about the being core and how it can benefit or hurt you. But I think for longevity in the industry and as a career athlete or whatever, staying core and is always going to have more longevity, So I'd like to see more those core old school athletes staying in the industry.
I like that. All right, who's the GOAT? That's the final question.
Who's the GOAT? I don't know, man. There's never been one GOAT for me. There's so many amazing people out there. Like, it's easy to say, like, for sure in the ski industry, like, to this day, like, I don't know, like, who do I want to see? I mean, fuck. T. Rice, easy to say he's a GOAT. Candide Tovacs, easy to say he's a GOAT in skiing. John Cardiel, a GOAT. But really, the real GOATs is, like, to me, it's Craig Kelly. Craig Kelly's the real GOAT. Skateboarding, who's the real GOAT? Jay Adams. These guys, they're the real OGs. They're the greatest of all time for me. In skiing, I mean, I could say my dad. I don't know, but
your dad.
There's a bunch of them, and so. But yeah, I don't know, like Eddie Aikau in surfing. It's like, to me, these guys are the GOATs. But Kelly Slater's a GOAT. So I don't know. There's just so many different GOATs for different things. But yeah.
Correct answer.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really inspired by, like, I'll always, like, inspired by what Travis does and still does. So, yeah, but there's so many.
Well, I think I speak on everybody who's tuned in, that we're excited to see you at Natural Selection, and well-deserved, and we're fucking hyped that they didn't blow that. Like X Games. Big miss back in the day. Jesus.
No.
Yeah,
I just wanted
miss.
that opportunity to do that video part. That was all.
Well, we haven't forgiven them yet. They owe you an apology. Thanks for coming on the show, man. Huge fan.
Thanks, buddy.
That was a wicked conversation. It only got better throughout. So
yeah.
Hopefully you tuned into this far. If so, right on. Probably the longest one we've recorded. 3.5 hours.
Damn, I kind of knew it was going to go long.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Take care. Peace.
Thanks, dog.
3, 2. Oh my God.
Yo, what's up?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program.
The Airtime Podcast is presented by Van Shoes since 1966.
There's nothing fake about it. Have something to believe in and be yourself. You know what I'm saying?